Well, we're at our appointed time, so I want to get started. I know a few people are going to be coming in, but delighted today to be calling in from Keenan Flagler Business School. And it's like the zombie apocalypse out here. There's literally one other car in the deck, and I think it's been there for a month. So very interesting. Now that your home internet is now stressed completely by all the K through 12 students in your neighborhoods. We're thrilled today to have Tom Lewis with us today. You know, I hate to confess this, but Tom was one of the main inspirations behind Entrepreneurs Lab. His work has been formative in really thinking through the gestation, the development, the training path of performance-based business leaders. And entrepreneurship is a key element of Tom's framework, but we're thrilled to have Tom here himself. Tom, for your benefit, we've had a number of sessions. This is our next to last session. We're kind of ending with the best, but this isn't the last session. Tom, we wish you were in the last one. Next week, we have Amy Cosper from Entrepreneur Magazine and Sophia Wu. But Tom's talk will actually be one of the best ways to conclude this course. And we've talked about next year, Tom may be leading this course. We focus in this course on three elements: function of thought leadership, trying to understand what's happening in the latest articulation of entrepreneurship. We bring in thought leaders who've written some of the best books on the topic. We also apply our learning through grand challenges. We bring in entrepreneurs who represent each of these core questions. We try to get a real life perspective on entrepreneurship. And then we do self-evaluation. I believe that Sherry Decker's on the phone or on Zoom. Sherry's been one of our partners with Trimetrics and Indigo, and all the students in the class have used Indigo as a vehicle. And Tom inspired that to give you an example. So what we'll do is we'll start out with the grand challenge. Tom is going to be presenting his work, Solid Ground. And then we'll have an opportunity for a Q&A. And I thought we'd give everyone just a brief bio break, and then the team will do the experiential exercise. So we'll go on this schedule. We'll have some flexibility in this schedule as well. So, you know, this concept of solid ground, I'm going to let the author present it, but, you know, there's no better preparation path than hard work in a lot of ways. You know, the whole idea of the impresario learning their craft by multiple repetitions, it's absolutely true. And also learning from some of the people who are impresarios before you. A big part of our entrepreneurship program has been focused on apprenticeship as a model, learning from others, but then finding ways to pioneer yourself. So we've had a number of challengers come into the class, a great variety of folks from different diverse backgrounds, giving certain messages, and all of our authors have been really seminal in understanding the nature of entrepreneurship as a beast, and helping put it in perspective for all of you wanting to be entrepreneurs. The students in this class, Tom, are all self-identified entrepreneurs. They're graduate students, they're undergraduate students. They're looking to, as the top probably 70 students at Carolina, looking to focus on a future of entrepreneurism, but they know that it's not a short run kind of process. It's not just starting a business after school. As a matter of fact, that might be exactly the wrong thing to do. We've had these materials in the course so far, and today we have the opportunity to have Tom with us, who just finished his book, Solid Ground. Tom's, I've been privileged to serve in Tom's professorship here at Carolina. Carolina is one of Tom's two alma maters. Although he favors on basketball season the Kentucky Wildcats, and we'll give that to him. Although we certainly have a good backup opportunity if Carolina has a good basketball game. So you know, he'll definitely root for the Heels as much as Kentucky. But if they ever face each other, we know he's going to go for Kentucky. Tom's been a real champion of our program here at Carolina, and has helped to develop a new perspective on leadership that really looks at helping to develop kind of transformative leaders who will break through any limits and actually have great outcomes in their career. And just thrilled to have Tom here. His bio's in your package, so I know everyone has read the material. We're thrilled. Tom was one of the most important people in the real estate industry and worked with Trammell Crow, created a new category of residential homes, founded one of the best home building companies in the world, T.W. Lewis Companies, and really was focused on quality and ultimately on building the best in class in the category. Ended up finding an acquirer who was aligned with his focus on quality, David Weekley, and still serves with David Weekley as a partner in the firm, and is an active investor, philanthropist, and involved in real estate community. He's also highly involved in his home community of Arizona, Phoenix, Scottsdale region, and it's extraordinary to see the work he's had, even impacting K through 12. He's given scholarships to young people who are going into college, looking for that special X factor that represents kind of a leadership potential. So I think, we're basically in your church, Tom. We're thrilled to have you, and we're going to turn over the pulpit to you to share your ideas on solid ground. So hopefully you'll be able to see it. Welcome.
Well, great. Well, it's really great to be, I want to say here, I guess I'm there, but it's like really cool, really, to see your all's faces too. I mean, that is really neat. I wish I could get everybody's face on the screen at once and have these slides too. But anyway, I do feel connected in this call, and I've been looking forward to doing this. It was 4 years ago, actually, February of 2016. I came to Chapel Hill, and Ted and I had been working together for a few years, and I had this idea of writing a book, and I thought I'd learned a lot of lessons in life and achieved more than my share of success, and quite a few failures too. And but I really just wanted to write a book. I wanted to put it all together and be able to share that with others. And so it's a real pleasure to me to be able to have this little call and to try to connect with you guys virtually. And I look forward to being on campus here before long and meeting many of you face to face. But Ted and I sat down with another faculty member, an adjunct guy, and came up with kind of an outline of the book that I wanted to write. And 4 years later, it was published. And if you think you've learned a lot of lessons and you want to write a book, actually putting it in words and putting it into a book is more challenging than I could have imagined. And it's one thing to think you know something, but to then write it down and get clear on it is another thing altogether. But it really also kind of helped me get clear on exactly what I believed and what I thought I'd learned. And so I do think, I see this as a gift, really. It's a gift to you. It's a gift to anybody that reads it. 40-something years ago, I was in the graduate business school at Carolina, and it was life-changing. I think it had a lot to do with my success. And so, anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. I do want to, this is the first time I've done a Zoom presentation like this, but I do want to keep it informal, and I'm going to stop and ask for questions along the way, and look forward to handling those and figuring out what's on your all's mind. So with that, let me just begin. But first of all, I think have you all read the book or read most of it? Can you say that? Or
yeah, they've all
Yes.
been given the opportunity to read it.
Okay, well, there's a lot in there, but it's a journey, and life's a journey. Your career is a journey. It's never over, and it's really about trying hard things and learning from them and getting better, and then trying the next hard thing. But so I guess I'd answer the question: why did I write this book? I found myself, 10 years ago, having had a lot of success, probably more than most people, more than most of my old friends, a lot of my classmates even. And so I tried to figure out, well, what exactly did I do differently? And I was trying to put that together in the form of a model that you could share, or I could share with other people, especially young people. They're early in their careers and trying to figure out what's the roadmap. How do I achieve life's greatest achievements, which is on the screen right here. And we all want these things. These are what I call life's greatest achievements. Success. My definition of success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. It's your idea. Your goals need to be worthy, and success needs to be chasing a worthy ideal, and it's progressive. And I get into these 5 topics in the last 5 chapters of the book, and and I don't know if we're going to have time to get into these topics, but today. But if we do at the end, I'm happy to talk about them, and because this is really what's on everybody's mind. How do I achieve happiness? And my wife and I have given well over 200 scholarships, and we would interview these students coming out of high school to go to college individually for about an hour, and I would ask them, so how important is career success to you? And many of them would just say, well, it's kind of important, but I wouldn't give up my happiness to be successful. And I think the implication there was that you can't be both successful and happy. You have to pick one. And that is totally not true. They're 2 different things. And you can have both or you can have neither. But I think, happiness is does not occur without achieving certain things in advance. Happiness is the result of a good life. And so what I've really tried to do is cover all what the building blocks it really takes so that you can have a happy life. And so anyway, that was one of the reasons I wrote this book. But I've also read all the success books that many of you have probably read. And as I dug into this whole topic of what can I share in terms of what I think is the lessons I've learned, I've reflected on all the great books that have been written about success. And for example, and all these I've mentioned in the book, but Dale Carnegie was one of the most impactful books, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was written in 1912, so it's over 100 years old. But it really got me going when I was in my mid-20s, and introduced me to some of the principles that lead to success. And Dale Carnegie in there had the 12 rules for winning friends and influencing people. And so, there was a list. There were some things that you could actually do that would help you be successful. One of my favorites on that list was beginning in a friendly way. And, it was kind of my nature to be that way anyway. It's kind of a Southern quality, I believe. But once I saw that in Dale Carnegie's book, I practiced more of it, and I was amazed at how well it worked in terms of getting along with people. And so, but you keep going through these other success books though, and then you get to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, and so it goes from 12 to 7, and then Malcolm Gladwell writes Outliers, and he breaks it down to 3 things, which are talent, hard work, and good fortune. And then comes Grit more recently, and it combines perseverance with passion and calls it one word. So how do you be successful? You start with 12 things, and then it gets down to 7, and then 3, and then just 1. And so this idea that is all it takes is grit is just silly, because being successful in life takes more than one thing. It's more complicated than that. And although sometimes we want to try to make it more simple, I don't think it's that simple. And so that's what I tried to address in this book. And so the first part of the book is my personal journey. And we all have our own journeys. And I think if you've read my journey, my guess is that you start thinking about your journey. Where were you from? What was your childhood like? What were your parents like? What What about your siblings? Who are your early influencers, your teachers, your coaches? What did you learn from them? And so discovering your roots really is an important thing, because I think as you get older, you find that you can connect the dots looking backwards, but you can't connect them looking forwards. With that, let me kind of go into the foundation for success. And and I guess just in another minute, kind of reflecting on the discovering your roots. I go through what I'll call my early childhood and family, which is so impactful for all of us. And everybody's unique that way. And then your college and graduate school years are so impactful. The faculty, people, the friends you made a huge difference on me. Just in the last few days, I've talked with two of my best friends from Chapel Hill. We graduated in 1973, but we're still in very close touch, and we work together, and we remain good friends. And then I get into the career part, and I guess from talking to a lot of young people, I've heard many of them say, "Well, I'm trying to find that perfect job," and there is no perfect job. So you might as well not even look at it. All there are is learning opportunities. And so for me, I spent 18 years working for 4 companies with 6 different bosses, and the variety of that. I got a lot of different. I lived in 6 or 8 different states, all over the map, literally, with great leaders and just okay leaders, and different personalities, and the more of that you can pack into your journey, the more you'll learn and the more you'll grow. And so that's kind of a theme. But for many people, you talk about being an entrepreneur. I was what you'd call a corporate entrepreneur for 18 years, and I always wanted to own my own company, but I didn't think I was ready, and until I was 41 years old. And the truth of the matter is that I wasn't. I didn't know all the things you needed to know. And I was working for large blue chip real estate companies, and took a lot of money, but more importantly, it took a lot of experience before I was really ready to step out on my own. And by the time I was about 40, was when I got that opportunity. So I didn't come right out of school wanting to be an entrepreneur. I came right out of school ready to learn, and I think that was kind of my story. So we'll talk about the foundation of success. And I'm a home builder, and the idea of a foundation is so important. The worst home building problems I've ever had were the ones that involve bad foundations. If you've got a bad foundation, you really can't fix it. The house is already built. It's a mess, and there's a lot of heartache and agony for everybody, especially the people living in the house. And so, and so it is with life. If you build your life on quicksand, you can't fix it later. Or it's very hard to fix. Let's put it that way. So what are those building blocks, and then what do they really mean? So, I start with personal character, and you know the history of happiness and Aristotle's thoughts on it and whatnot. The way to get to happiness is through virtue, and so we don't talk a lot about personal character in our society today. A lot of people just push back on that. I don't really understand why, but the idea is that there should not be rules for behavior. That everybody should be free to kind of do their thing as long as they don't hurt someone else. But there are some principles out there. We'll call them virtues. I call them personal character, that are important, and they just, if for no other reason, they lead to a happy life. And there's several books that have been written on personal character, and so the stuff that's in my book, I didn't come up with all of it. I just kind of reflecting on it. But one of the powerful things there is that there's two different types of personal character. There's moral and there's performance, you know. And if you ask somebody, well, tell me about this person's personal character, they might say, oh, he's a hard worker and he's reliable and he's really kind. Okay, so that's good, but there's a difference between moral and performance, and so uh, and these things become part of your root structure. You know, there's a story about a Chinese bamboo tree. Have you guys ever heard that story? Anybody? Well, a Chinese bamboo tree, you plant it and you water it every day and fertilize it. It doesn't grow for about 6 months, or maybe 6 years, and then all of a sudden it grows to 100 feet. And the way it does that is it's been growing its root structure for those 6 years, and then it grows to 100 feet. And the reason it does that is that if it didn't have those roots, it would just fall over. But you have to have a root structure, and you have to have, that's kind of like the same analogy as solid ground. But your personal character is part of that root structure. And Ted, we can go to the next slide here. The next one. So, the definition of personal character is it's the combination of all your attributes. It's essential for a good life. And if you hit one of my favorite quotes there is, if you have integrity, nothing else matters. And if you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. I mean, in business and in life, it really just takes one major breach of character or integrity, and it's people no longer trust you. Ted, okay, so so these are just some examples of some of the different words, and there's hundreds of words you could put in both columns, but these are just some of the things that how you differentiate between performance and moral traits. And what I'd like to say is the moral traits really make you a good person, and the performance traits make you a good worker. And it's important, and you really can't have success in business without these performance traits. And you've got to have the hard work, reliability, self-control, perseverance, all those good, solid things. They're great things, but they do not make you a good person. It's the moral traits that really make you a good person. So just being aware of those things and trying to, just improve. That's all you can do. And certainly all of us are imperfect, but it's just, I think, a good idea to be aware of these things and these qualities, and to consider them and be thoughtful about them and think about how you can get better.
Tom, I'm sorry to interrupt, but as you've studied different types of leaders, are there traits on the both moral and performance side that you would call out as being more important than others, or ones that you see generally aligned with very high performance people?
Well, I guess that's a good question, Ted. In the moral traits, some leaders earn the trust of, you have to earn the trust of your followers. And the way and trustworthiness is the natural, or trust is the natural result of being trustworthy. So you have to walk the talk. And if you don't, your followers will notice that and they'll lose respect for you. So being a person that is worthy of trust is probably the one that comes to mind. And the other one is integrity. With kindness, I wouldn't say kindness is, I've worked for bosses that were really kind and really unkind, but I think if you have integrity and you're trustworthy, people will follow you and they will feel good about it. Another one I would say is decency. That you just have to treat people the way you'd like to be treated. You can't be abusive or rude, or you have to be considerate. And if you're those things, I think people will be able to follow you. Under the performance traits, I think assertiveness is really important. Jack Welch, the GE CEO that recently died, wrote a book called Winning. And the secret sauce, according to Jack Welch, was really that ability to tell it like it is. And in business, a lot of times in companies, and you kind of have to pretend to go along with everybody. But if you can be assertive, which is not aggressive, it's saying what you mean, helps you get what you want, but do it in a gentlemanly way, or in an appropriate way, without attacking, really is effective. I mean, if you just say what you think and say what you want in a soft voice, people will sit up straight and pay attention to you and try to accommodate you. And it took me a while to learn that. But so assertiveness, I think, is definitely an important one. And then the hardest of all is judgment. I mean, that you can't have judgment without wisdom. And wisdom is a gift. Not everybody has it. I don't care what your IQ is. You don't learn wisdom in school. You have to learn that on your own. So there's reliability, responsiveness, but it's really just treating people the way you'd like to be treated, I think. And but understanding that there are two different categories of character, I think, is really the point that I'm trying to make there. So,
Pardon, one more interruption, Tom.
Okay.
Anthony Shinelli had a question. Anthony, you want
Yeah, fire away.
Anthony? Anthony, if you want to ask your question.
Oh, yeah. So I was just really wondering, Tom, if you could kind of talk about, in terms of hiring people, what are some of the best questions you can ask, in terms of like seeing if someone has a good character, seeing if they're really a strong foundation morally versus like the typical interview questions that generally focus on productivity?
Mm-hmm. I don't really, I don't think I have a good answer for that, because interview questions are just interview questions. There's a little story I tell in the book about 200 plays, and that's what they do in the NFL. And you really have to see a person in action. What I love to do in an interview is give somebody an assignment and get them to tell me when they're going to have it back to me, and then see if they do it, and then see the quality of their work. So but the interview questions, you can fake it, and but I guess maybe what you're really asking is, what do you look for when you hire people? And that is the hardest question in the world, and really. But that's why I've started a long time ago, having candidates take personality assessments. And for example, are you guys familiar with the Myers-Briggs assessment? Some of you might be, but I mean, you just cannot. People are complicated, and you just have to try to understand as much about them as you can. But you also have to look at at where they've been and who they are, and it's there's no easy answer to that question, Anthony. I wish there was, but
No, that's fine. Thank you so much.
Even education. Some of my most successful friends didn't even go to college. So there's a secret quality out there, a special quality, and I think it's very hard to define. But there's a lot of ways to succeed, and I always try to meet people, though, and kind of meet them on their ground, and understand that some of the best performers in the world are just very unique people. And but anyways, that's hard. That's the hardest thing in business, really, is recruiting and hiring and keeping good people.
We'll just take one other question. Stephanie Chack has a great question.
Okie doke.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us today. My question is, I want to understand the delineation between meaning and personal character. Personally, I see meaning driving some of that personal character development.
You're saying the difference between meaning and personal character?
Yeah.
Okay. Two different things, totally. I believe. The personal character is, in my view, the sum of all of an individual's characteristics and traits. And that's what makes it hard, because there's so many traits. Okay, and that's why I've tried to pick 24. 12 moral, 12 performance. So that, to me, that's personal character. As simple as I can make it, two categories, maybe the most popular 12 traits in each one. That to me is personal character. Meaning is something completely different. And to me, in the last, the next to last chapter, I guess, is I think you find meaning on the road to purpose. Okay. And so, in my case, as I pursued success in business and in family, and ultimately found what I thought was my purpose, I found meaning in chasing those things that I valued. And for example, everyone would tell you, this is kind of funny, but that raising children was probably the most meaningful thing they've ever done. And so you would ask, well, why is raising children so meaningful? And having 3 grown sons, I can tell you that raising children is very hard, and that you suffer. Okay, I mean, your mom and dad suffered with you because that's the way parenting is, and so when you and that's really where the meaning comes from. Is you go through hardships, you encounter adversity, you deal with it, and then in the end, looking back, it was meaningful, and it was, in the case of raising children, it was joyful. So meaning is something that is also very individual for each of us. And I wrote that chapter on meaning because a lot of people get meaning and purpose kind of mixed up, and they do overlap, I think. But purpose is more why you are here, and meaning is what you draw from your experiences that have value to you. And I also think that if you know what your core values are and your motivating values, you'll find more meaning in things that resonate with those values. For example, I'm a utilitarian when it comes to values, and so I found meaning in building a very efficient company. My wife is the high aesthetic; she finds meaning in beauty and music and things like that. So, anyway.
Meaning, I'll remember this. Meaning is found on your path to purpose.
Yeah, I think that's how I see it. I might be wrong.
I don't think so.
But I doubt it. No, it's meaning is personal. We could both do the exact same thing, and you might find tremendous meaning in it, and it might be meaningless to me. So it's very personal. But if you find something that's meaningful to you, you should do it and do more of it. That'd be my message there. Okay, let's go to hard work. I want to just show you this little book. I don't know if you guys have seen this book lately, but this is maybe you can't see it. The name of this book is Hard Work by Roy Williams. Okay, so a great Tar Heel. But I had the pleasure of knowing Roy when I was in school. My best friend and roommate was his best friend and roommate from Asheville. They grew up together, and so I got to know Roy a little bit, and I'm very proud of what he's done there. So, the thing about hard work, I'll say, and it just, assuming you read the chapter on that, though, but there's a lot of really good things that happen when you do the hard work, and the best of those is self-esteem gets better. You become more competent, and you become more confident. And switching basketball schools to Kentucky, Rick Pitino had a great quote called "Deserve Victory." He said, "Hard work leads to competence. Competence leads to confidence, and it takes confidence to succeed." And so, the more hours you put in, the more you spend with your shoulder to the grindstone, the better you get at whatever you're doing, and the better you get, the more confident you become. And so, really, you can't build confidence without hard work. And if you read the stories of any athletes, it's really obvious. It's not so obvious in business, let's say, or in life, but it's equally true that just effort. The other thing that I think is kind of not spoken very much about hard work is that when you encounter adversity, hard work leads to adversity because it's hard. And then the adversity, by overcoming it, builds resilience. And so you're no longer fragile, you're strong, and you're resilient. And so you get knocked down, you just get right back up. And so those are some of the side effects, if you will, or kind of the hidden virtues of hard work. But it's really it sounds old-fashioned, but it's still true. It's a principle that I don't see changing anytime soon. Another thing I just throw out here is that so much of business, and call it entrepreneurship or even life, there's only three phases. The first is the vision. Let's take your career, or let's say you're starting a company. You start with a vision. Then comes the struggle. There's going to be a struggle. I don't care if it's building a company, raising a family, what have you. There's a struggle. I'm sure you would agree with me on that. Then once you push through the worst part of the struggle, it just becomes a journey, and that's kind of how life is, and that's how business is. It's never over.
Tom, one of the speakers that came into the class, Eric Severinghouse, one of our grads, actually has an entire piece on the struggle, and speaks very eloquently about the process of persevering against some of when the odds are against you. It shows you who you are and tests your mettle, and that becomes part of the journey. Entrepreneurs have sometimes a lot of trouble keeping that journey in perspective, though. Have you seen problems with entrepreneurs maybe putting themselves in a position where they don't really take care of the root base of the foundation, and maybe shortcut in ways that are harmful to themselves and maybe to others?
Well, sure. I think a lot of people do that. I mean, adversity, it doesn't build character, it reveals it, and so if there's a flaw in your character, and you put enough pressure on yourself, it's going to reveal those cracks. And I think we're probably, what we're going through right now with this virus is putting a ridiculous amount of stress on the system, whether it's a company or a university, and it really forces you to reveal who you are, and what you believe in and what your values are. And so, yeah, that's it's just human.
By definition, when you're starting a company, you're at the highest point of that process of adversity at some points, especially at the early stages when things are very tumultuous and uncertain. So it's having kind of that steadiness and that sense of focus, ultimately that meaning that drives you.
And I think by just understanding that there's going to be a struggle, and the struggle is normal, that you can't just say, oh my God, this is so hard, but right. But knowing that it's hard and it's going to be hard really makes it easier. There's a quote in my book that I really thought was cool. That's why I put it in there. It was a Supreme Court justice said to his daughter, "My dear, if you would just understand how hard life is, things would get much easier for you." and that's really, isn't that true?
So true.
That's half the battle, just understanding that it's not going to be easy. Okay, so let's go to any other questions from anybody?
I think we're okay.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about goal setting. Okay. When I was about ready to graduate from Chapel Hill in the spring of 1973, I knew life was about to change for me, and I didn't really know what I was going to do. I knew I liked construction and I liked investing, but I sat down and I came up with a little, on one piece of paper, I wrote down my goals. And my goal was to someday own my own company that was in the construction business and that had a high quality product and took good care of customers. And I also wanted to become a millionaire by the time I was 30. And so,
by the way, those two goals sound very familiar. We looked at all the journey maps of the students, and How many
Yeah.
of you have those two objectives? And unfortunately, a lot of them are about billion as opposed to million. You should disabuse them of that
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, that wasn't even a word back then. But anyway, that became my dream and what I'll call my someday goal. And I think we all need a good, clear someday goal. And the beauty of someday is that it's really like a North Star. It's pulling you. You don't know. There's not a date associated with it, but it's pulling you toward that. And in my case, I didn't get there by the time I was 30. It took me to I was about 40 to get there, but I knew I was going to get there at some point, and that was my goal, and that's really all I needed to go through all the challenges that I faced early in my career. But there's a lot of people have come up with ways to set goals, and 10 years ago or so, I started hearing about, maybe it was 20 years, SMART goals. Specific, measurable, whatever those letters stood for, but it's SMART goals. And how can you argue with that? But the problem with SMART goals is that there was no heart in there. There wasn't anything that was inspiring. And then later, somebody came along and came up with another acronym called HARD, and that was, I forget what those letters stood for, but another way to set goals. But to me, goals have always been inspiring. And if I can just come up with the right words that kind of capture what I want to do, and then that makes a good goal. So my word for goal setting is inspire. And those letters stand for inspiring, noble, specific, personal, immediate, realistic, and expected. But the first two letters are really the most important, and that's inspiring to you and noble. It has to be a worthy ideal. You can't say, I want to be the richest day trader in America. That's just not noble enough. Okay. So something, it has to be high-minded. Now, when I started my company in 1991, I came up with a great noble purpose statement, and it goes like this: T.W. Lewis Company will become the best home building organization in America as measured by product quality, customer satisfaction, and profitability. And I think I really nailed it with that. But the reason I say nailed it was because every time I say that, or even now, it kind of gives me goosebumps. But it also did that for my employees. And my employees, would follow me into a fire because that was our purpose. But it had a noble ring to it. We want to. I didn't say we want to become the richest or the biggest. We want to become the best, as measured by product quality, customer satisfaction, and profitability. Now, those three measurements created some tension. That made it even harder because, you want to have product quality and be profitable? And have good, happy customers? That's not easy, right? Okay, so but it created some tension. But I'm just saying those goals, if the right inspiring goal you're halfway there, if you can come up with that. Any thoughts or questions on goal setting? Anybody?
Well, as a matter of fact, it would be a great opportunity right now to share some of your goals. Some were very specific and some were more general. And, for instance, I remember, Roy, you had a pretty specific set of goals. And Harris, yours were more kind of general. Becca, yours were probably noble, and inspiring. It's interesting how I'm testing the way you answered that question in goal setting and how you approach the goal setting process. We've developed this thing called the summiting canvas. We've looked at various summits that people would take. Would anyone like to volunteer, how they've outline their goals? Called a few of you out. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I mean, rather than maybe get into individuals' goals, just any questions in general about, I mean, the other thing I talk about in the book is different time frames. You know, I mean, you kind of need goals for today, and in my case, this month and this year. And but it's it's a dream with a deadline, really, is what a goal is. So, but I guess to be successful, you have to have goals. I mean, and that's my point, and that's why it's in the pyramid. Is it's necessary. It is absolutely necessary. I love the quote that says a person without goals is like a ship without a rudder. I mean, imagine being in the ocean without a rudder or without a sail. I mean, you're getting blown with the wind. So if you want to have a self-directed life, you have to have goals.
Just one thing I'd say is in your test, Inspire test, it's clear to me that this nature of goal setting isn't about you. It's about others. It's about how you can help to catalyze positive change, value add, contribution, maybe doing something greater than yourself, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
motivating people well beyond yourself to do something really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's true. And another thing I would say is that it's better for goals to be qualitative than quantitative. I mean, to say I want to make $1 million by the time I'm 30, that's not really a very good goal. I mean, it would be better to say I want to be financially independent as soon as possible. But to be qualitative about the goals, to say I want to become something versus acquire something. And I call those become goals. I mean, and if you think about it, I challenge each of you right now. Think of 3 things you want to become. I mean, they're qualitative, they're intangibles. I want to become a great husband or wife, a great boss, inspiring friend. I mean, whatever it is, what do you want to become? Because those things will inspire you. The other last thing I'll say about goals is, I talk about it in the book, is think and then rethink. But goals, you can throw them away just as quick as you can come up with them. I mean, and if situations change, toss it. I mean, don't stick with a goal that has gotten tired or uninspiring. Get rid of it. Just boot it out and bring in a new one that inspires you, because that's what goals are all about. And I guess the idea behind that too is that as you go down the road of life and try to become successful, it takes a lot of energy, and so you've really got to motivate yourself. And if you're chasing a goal that doesn't motivate you, then your battery is being depleted. But if you can use I've always used goals to inspire myself, to give me more energy, so that when other people are tired, I'm still inspired. And so that's just a little trick in terms of managing yourself and your own energy and optimism. Okay. The next one, Ted, let's jump over helping others and get to self-awareness, and then come back to helping others. This is something that took me a while to figure this out, but I would say this. When I look back at my career, probably one of the most important reasons I was able to be successful is that my job, if you will, was perfectly aligned with my behaviors, my motivating values, and my strengths. Okay, and it took me a while to get there, but I was leading with my strengths, okay, and my values, and maybe more important, the values are probably the most important thing. If I could tell you guys one thing about your career, I would say align your career with your motivating values, and by that I mean the indigo values. Theoretical, like Ted, for example. Excuse me for using an example. Anybody that's a professor has a high theoretical value. They just love learning and for learning's sake. And so, anybody who's a successful entrepreneur has a high utilitarian value. They value efficiency, economic returns, and returns on their investment. So you have to align your values with your career, and but you can't do that unless you know what they are. So another thing I would say about values is it's kind of like character. There's two different types of values. There's and I get into this in the book, of course, but there's core values and then there's motivating values. The motivating values come from the indigo, and that's the theoretical, utilitarian, social, traditional, aesthetic. There's only 6 primary motivating values. And everybody has if you look at your top 2 or 3, those are the ones you want to build on. The other type of values is what I call core values, and that's all the honesty, integrity, hard work. And in the book, if you'll remember, I came up with a list of 100 of them. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to take that little quiz that's in the book, because it causes you to pick the top 25, then the top 10 or 12, then your top 6. And then that's kind of what you stand for. And once you get clear on what you stand for, making decisions is twice as easy. I mean, it becomes, just look at your core values, and that's your guide right there. Just don't, so that's another little thing that took me a while to learn.
Tom, we were very fortunate to have at the beginning part of the class Sherry Smith join us from Indigo, and I think Sherry's maybe even listening in to your talk. And I think the students really benefited a great deal from that self-assessment work. The business school has, oh good, Sherry, you're out there. The school does a lot of work around more traditional leadership, and Indigo really helps to suss out kind of the X factor by using a composite type of strategy. We also worked with Gallup's BP10, so the students had 2 different inputs on that process. Students, would you like to share any exposure you've had with those tools? Did it help you kind of fill out your social graph and your idea of self-awareness? It's hard with this kind of thing. Alex is Alex, I might call on you.
I could jump in there, Ted, and give my take on my experience there if you'd like.
Thank you, Brian.
So I was identified as a communicator and a little confused as to how it got a conductor and a communicator in 2 of these types of tests that were in your book as well. And it's interesting because I first didn't see, I was like, I could probably identify with 5 of these personality traits, but I think it means that I have a passion for people and for communicating with people and engaging with them. And the deeper I looked into my values, the deeper I identified this need for connection and engagement.
Yeah. Brian's an unusual case too, because Brian is an Olympic athlete. He's an expert in judo, and he had learned judo, so it's created a sense of discipline. But the fact that he's now finding himself kind of exploring how he relates to other people and his own experience in developing his craft, I think is pretty telling of the kind of leader, pragmatic leader that you'll emerge to be.
Yeah. And you know why this is so important is to understand yourself, is because your success is going to come from aligning your career with your talent. And your talent is based on you have to know your talent. You have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then my advice is to forget what you're not good at. Don't try to get better at what you're naturally not good at. Your time is better spent working on things you're naturally good at, and then you can become world class at it if you put in the effort. So, but you can't do that until you understand it. And so, for example, knowing that you're a people person means that your career you need to lead with that. I mean, you need to know that you don't want to work in a situation where you're isolated. You need to be around people, and that's where where you will flourish. You know, and knowing that, you know, I didn't know that when I was, you know, your age, but that's the value of just knowing who you are, and it's not as easy as it sounds. You can't just take an assessment. I mean, you have to take a lot of assessments and then put yourself in a lot of tough situations, because that's really in the crucible of life. You begin to really understand yourself better, and but it's a good place to start. And you know, I started that journey at Chapel Hill under Dr. Jerry Bell, who's a legendary organizational behaviorist, and as an engineering undergrad, you know, I'd never had anything close to that. I didn't, but you know, just beginning to learn about that in his class back then, just created a wonderful journey for me to begin to learn about myself and others, because, you know, and then when you try to hire other people, you're trying to apply those things to try to understand them better. And it gets where it's you can. There's a lot of things that you learn that you can quickly see in other people that just by being aware. So okay, so let's switch over to helping others then, Ted.
Sorry. And Tom, I just want to take this opportunity to thank Sherry. We began the class with Sherry, and Sherry was introduced to us through you. So thank you very much for making that happen. And Sherry, thank you for your generosity in joining us down here at Carolina and giving us an opportunity to assess ourselves. So it was great.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi, thanks so much.
Hey,
It was a
yeah,
good time.
I wish I could see you and everybody else. You know, one other thing I want to say about self-awareness, and Sherry and I have had a lot of fun working on that together. And of course, she does that for a living. But the quote I have on the screen there is, or I did have on the screen is, you know, is a Bob Dylan quote out of Maggie's Farm, which says, "I try my best to be just who I am, but everybody wants you to be just like them." And that is true. I mean, you know, when you encounter people, they want you to be just like them. And whether it's your spouse or your girlfriend or your husband or your best friend, I mean, so you're constantly getting all this pressure to be like, everybody wants you to be just like them. But that's why you need to know who you are, and then be just like you are, not somebody else. Because people do want to change you. They want you to act just like they do. And I never cared for that myself. So helping others, you know, I had to put that in the bottom of the foundation, because it is so instrumental to not only a good life, but a good career. You know, I think about all the leaders that I've worked for. You know, they were generous. They were generous with their time. They were generous with their ideas. They were generous in so many ways. You know, Trammell Crow, the legendary real estate person that I got to know personally when I worked for his company, people used to say about him that Trammell succeeded because everybody wanted him to, because he was just such a nice man and so generous in every way that everybody was pulling for him, and you need people pulling for you. So, but there's also, like hard work, helping others has a lot of other kind of ancillary benefits. One, it leads to a richer, deeper, and more meaningful life. You know, Stephanie mentioned that earlier about meaning. You know, meaning. You know, when you focus just on yourself, that actually leads to unhappiness more than it does happiness. So focusing, you know, the key to happiness is focusing on other people. I mean, if you had to boil it down to one thing, which you really can't, but helping others builds your own self-esteem. It makes you a happier person, and it leads to more meaning. I mean, think about it. You know, right now I read an article about the virus, and people were asking, "What can I do? I'm getting depressed." And the advice in some newspaper was, "Go do something for someone else." You know, I mean, that's really, you know, if you think about Christmas, what do you get more fun out of? Opening your presents or watching your family and open the presents you got for them. I mean, it's just a fact. But you can't go through life just focusing on yourself. That is not the way to live. And I think that the more you help other people, the more you benefit personally. So anyway, to me, that's part of the foundation. So I guess what I'm saying is these 5 qualities: personal character, hard work, goal setting, self-awareness, and helping others. If you can focus on those things and treat them like the foundation that they are, then everything else becomes more possible. You know. So can we kind of take a pause right there and just see if anybody wants to talk about anything or bring up any questions?
Any questions?
Anybody?
Yeah, Ted, this is Jill Willett. Hey, Tom, thank you so much for what you've shared so far. I popped a question in the chat window earlier, and I'm so glad that you were covering some of the self-awareness aspects, because I confess I didn't read the whole book, but I cherry-picked, and when I did, I went straight for your self-awareness kind of chapter. So my question, I really like what you said about self-awareness is an ongoing process. And I run our apprenticeship program, which is self-awareness and self-discovery is a really big part. It's kind of a core part of that program. So my question is, what should the entrepreneurs that are on this call do to kind of flex their self-discovery muscles? Is there any sort of a routine or approach that's worked for you to kind of stay in that more of a reflective or introspective state?
Okay, repeat that question.
Sorry, yeah. So my question is, what can the entrepreneurs on this call do to flex their kind of self-discovery muscles? Is there a routine or approach or something that you would recommend to stay in that state?
Well, here's how I would answer that is try something hard, fail, get back up, try it again, fail again, and get back up. I mean, to me, that's really how you discover your, you put yourself in adverse conditions, and then you learn from it. And I don't think you can do that, sitting on the couch, thinking of, put yourself in a, kind of a personal reflection. I think it's really more about just getting out there and interacting with the world, interacting with people that you find difficult to deal with, maybe, or, I just call it trying something hard, and that's really how you learn more about yourself. And then you maybe learn some tricks or techniques to help you get through situations like that. So I'm not sure if that answered your question or not, but that's what came to mind.
That's a great answer. So part of it is making yourself a little bit vulnerable to potentially failing, pushing yourself to your limits, testing your own mettle. But, I'm curious, for those of us who might be challenged, there might be things that we need to correct, maybe we need to take care of ourselves better, or maybe we need to be less obsessive, or I'm just thinking of different things that could deviate your path. How would you look to correct things in your approach? Are there any self-improvement types of strategies you could use? I know that's not really what Joe was getting at, but I'm curious about it.
Are you asking me that?
Yeah, I was just wondering, Tom, what your thoughts were in that regard. If I really wanted to correct kind of misalignment that I have.
Yeah. Well, to me, life is all about improvement, and we all can improve. And so that's why trying hard things leads to improvement, because if you don't try hard things, you're now protecting yourself from failure, but you're not learning and you're not growing. So, but when you do try hard things, you find out where you do need to improve. And so, for example, let's take managing people. You graduate from college and you don't know how to manage people. That's something you have to learn on the job. And so, you start off and you don't do a very good job at it. And so you kind of learn from those experiences, and you gradually get better. And so that's just an example of the, and that's why you have to, in your career, keep encountering new opportunities and put yourself in situations that you're not familiar with, and so that you do, those are all learning opportunities. So
when I was coming up, I surrounded myself with people that were better than I was, and it served to challenge me all the time. Just my life lesson was that they would always put me in a position that I had to show my stuff, and they expected it. So I had to bring my A game every day, and it's hard to bring your A game every day. So I agree with you completely.
That's a good point you make, Ted, about putting yourself in the presence of people that might be a little sharper than you are, or might be ahead of you in some ways. And I mean, that's what I found when I went to Chapel Hill. I remember sitting in the classroom looking at my group of 60 classmates, and I wasn't sure if I was in the top half or the bottom half. But that's how you inspire yourself, really. And it's also competing. I think competing is a wonderful concept, because that's how life is, and that's how certainly the business world is. And it's like playing sports in high school. To me, business was just sports for grown-ups. Whether you're in the home building business or whatever business you're in, you're competing with people that are basically your age, doing the same thing you're doing, and not everybody wins. And the ones that work the hardest and continue to improve are the ones that do the best.
Well said.
So now we get to talent, and so we're going to move to this second part of the pyramid, and what I call reaching your potential. And that's the 5 traits of finding your talent, making decisions, taking smart risk, keeping your drive alive, and executing on your career. And, of all the success books that are out there, and, I've read most of them, the most popular ones, none of them talk about these 5 characteristics. And they're really the difference between average and outstanding, is these things. And when I look at the leaders I've worked for, the Trammell Crows and the Ron Terwilligers and the others that you wouldn't know their names, but they're legends in the real estate business in my era. These are the things nobody talks about, but you have to be really good at it. And the first one is your talent. And talent is complex. I got to know a man here in Phoenix before he passed away, named Bill Bonstetter, and Sherry knew Bill, and he was a legend in the self-assessment world. But he studied talent for 40 years, and in the book, we talk about 7 different. What is talent? Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers said that talent is one of the 3 keys to success, but he didn't really define what talent is. And Bill Bonstetter defined it as behaviors, motivators, personal skills, acumen, emotional intelligence, education, and experience. And so that's a lot right there, but it's in the book. But and a lot of that stuff, some of that stuff you can control more than others. But the thing that you can control the most is experience. And you can push yourself and get. And the person that gets more and more experiences, more and more reps, learns more and develops their talent faster. And so the people that I've known that were super successful did a lot of reps, and that's how they got good. I tell the story about talking with the GM of the Phoenix Suns one time, and I just read the book Moneyball, and Moneyball came up with the idea that in baseball, it's not home runs or batting average that really matters, it's on base percentage. And so I asked this basketball GM in the NBA, what's the key what's the key statistic in the NBA? And without hesitating, he said shot selection. Everybody's got a shot that they're really good at. And so if you have a team and everybody takes their best shot, literally, the team wins. You don't take shots you're not good at. 3-point shooters or take threes, and other people take different shots. So finding out what your best shot is kind of part of finding your talent. But you have to, the more experience you get, the better off you are.
Hey, Tom.
Any thoughts on talent? Anybody want to comment or say something?
Christina Ash has a really cool question on that topic. Christina, do you want to take it over?
Certainly, Ted. And not so much a question, but just a reiteration to the class. Tom, this is one of my favorite parts of the book, is when you said, as millennials, we're always told to follow our passion. And I can't tell you how many times I have been told, follow your dreams, just follow your passion, do what you love. And the reality is that's not what my talent is, right? And
Right.
I think for you to point out that, look, your passion is your passion, but follow your talent if you want to be successful, right?
Right.
And you are not the same. And I thought that was a really key point that no one has ever said to our generation. They always say, just follow your passions.
I know.
Yeah, I just want to drive that home to the class.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And you said it better than I have. But I heard so many young high school kids say that to me. I just got so sick of hearing it because I thought it was so silly. My passion was basketball, but I'm not tall enough, fast enough, and can't jump or dribble with my left hand. So what good is that? That's just a joke. So figure out what your talent is, so thank you for pointing that out.
I'm gonna make fun of myself. I'm 6'4", and the athletic director came up to me when I came to a new school, and he said, "What do you play? What do you play?" He was excited to see a tall person. I said, "I play the trumpet." It wasn't what he wanted to hear.
Yep, that was your talent. So another thing I'll say about the talent, though, and I said it in the book, but when I would talk to these high school kids, I would ask them what they wanted to be when they grow up, and they would usually have two words, and that resonated with them. They're good in statistics. They like biology. They want to be a statistical biologist. For me, my two words were construction and investment. I get excited when I heard those words. Something about them just kind of inspired me. And so I would ask each of you to think about what your two words are. And that's a good hint at kind of the direction you want to go. And that also is maybe where you'll find your talent, is because it's got to be something that really resonates with your DNA. Okay, well, let's switch to decision making. Let's move on to that. And the best thing I can say about decision making is know your values. And if you're a good decision maker, I can promise you will have a successful life, okay, and a great career. It's that simple. If you're a bad decision maker, not so much. You just got to master the art of making decisions. And my favorite thing to say on that is that there's only two times to make a decision. One is when you have all the information, and two is when you have to. Okay, so the message there is, don't make a decision until you know all the information, or you have to. And too many people, pull the trigger when they don't need to. And so you always want to delay decisions until you have enough information. And there's models for making good decisions that I've covered in the book. But the most important ones, though, are knowing your values and making decisions that are consistent with those. And another funny thing that I mentioned in the book is that, when our kids were little, we had a little thing that we put on the refrigerator called the refrigerator rules, which were 3 little boys, under 7. And they were rule 1 was do what mom and dad say. First time, no back talk. No hitting, no hurting. Make a mess, clean it up. And then the last rule was don't do anything stupid. Okay, so that was just a kind of a joke in our family. But what we were really trying to tell our kids is don't make bad decisions. Don't do anything stupid. And to this day, we still laugh about that when they're doing things that they need to be careful on. But I later learned that there's actually 2 different types of bad decisions. One is doing something stupid. The other one is not doing something smart. And those are two different things. So not doing something stupid is like playing defense. But not doing something smart, or doing something smart, is offense. It's so you have to be there's 2 different types of bad decisions. So doing something stupid is kind of easy to avoid, but not doing something smart is harder. So but the hardest thing about making decisions, though, is having judgment, and that is judgment is rare, and you have to put some truth into your brain to really be able to have that judgment. And so, as I say in the book, wisdom comes from truth and knowledge and experience, but it's more than knowledge is not truth. Knowledge is not wisdom.
Tom, in your work, your experience, would help us all think about decision making in a different kind of way. And many of the best decisions are made when there's a lot of good information collected about the decision. But many business decisions don't allow you a lot of time to collect information. So you have to make clutch decisions that are based on what you know at the time. What trade-off is there between good decision making and rapid decision making? Because people who analyze a problem to the point where they don't make a decision are unsuccessful for not making the decision, right?
Yeah, I think that's where judgment comes in, though. And one of the things that I remember most about our MBA program, many years ago, was these case studies where they would give you a lot of data, but a lot of the data was meaningless.
Yeah.
And a very little of it was actually important. The hard part was figuring out what was important and what was not important. And so that really required judgment. And so that's the art of making good decisions. And that's what makes it hard, is that, there's an old cowboy saying that says, sometimes you need more horse and sometimes you need more harness, and so you can't always say, oh, you always need more horse. Sometimes you need more harness. In running a company, I use that to say the horse is, let's say sales. When you're in the housing business, you got to get sales. To me, that was we just need to do whatever we have to do to get sales. Now, once you get a lot of sales, now you need some harness, you need some structure, and you need to manage it. So, the needs shift as you go through starting a company. Sometimes you need more revenue, sometimes you need more cost control. Understanding when you need what is really the art of being an entrepreneur, because things change.
By the way, Tom, Jeff Earhart is kind of building on what Christina had mentioned about passion being kind of overthought. Jeff, what's your question?
Yeah, hi there. So the question I have is, right, we define a lot of what we want to be based off of our definitions of success. And that varies from person to person. And I think that a trap a lot of people in general, I've fallen into it before I changed what I was doing, is going down a path that we might not necessarily care about, or it might not be something we're the best at because we think it'll bring us the most success. So I was just curious to hear what your thoughts are on defining success in general.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. The best definition I've heard of that is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And that came from Earl Nightingale in about 1920. The
Could you say that
progressive,
one more time? Tom, could you say that one more time?
the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So, success is not making $1 million, or success is not becoming the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. It's, and you have to keep setting new worthy ideals. And, when you're, so, and maybe each one is 5 years out, that you have to, because once you reach one of your worthy ideals, it's time to set a new one, in my case, I wanted to own my own company. I did that for 20 years. I made a lot of wealth. That became not nearly as important to me. And now my worthy ideal is really giving that away and to do it effectively. So, your worthy ideals change as you go. Even with your children, we have 3 sons. When they were little, our worthy ideal was to raise 3 good sons, and to help them get started in their life. And now they're all up and running and doing real well. And so, you just keep setting new worthy ideals. But we all have different ones. So as long as they're worthy, and the word progressive is important because it's not just something you can just run out and do. That's not success. It's more, it takes time, and it's a journey. And then, but it helps to have a definition. It really helps. And so many young people that I've talked to, and it was a trick question, I would ask them, how important is career success to you? And I was just trying to kind of hear what they would say. And I was really trying to find out how much drive they had, because we're going to get to drive in a minute. But if you've got all the talent in the world and have all the other qualities, but you have no drive, it's like a car without an engine. So I would ask them, how important is career success to you? And the ones that would say it means everything to me, or it is super important, those are the kids I wanted to help. But a lot of times they would say, well, it's not so important that I would give up my happiness. And that's where I understand, they didn't understand either concept, because, and that's what I talked about earlier, was you can be successful and happy, or you can be unsuccessful and unhappy, or any combination of those two things. They're just totally different. So, anyway, thank you.
Great answer.
Tom, I got a question on that last statement you said about how much does career success mean to you?
Yeah.
It kind of seems like the trick is adding the word career into that question. Yeah. And if you drop career, it becomes a lot simpler. Would you agree with that?
Well, I guess let me think about that. If I just said, how important is success to you? I was trying to talk about long-term success, so that's why I used the word career. But so that, I guess there's a lot of ways you could ask that question. I mean, what does success mean to you? I mean, a lot of young people, if you ask that question, what does success mean to you? They would say, and I've asked that question to a lot of adults, they would usually say something like, well, to have a happy family and be healthy. But and that's true, but that wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for the go-getters, the ones that were going to make something important happen.
Mm-hmm.
How would you answer that?
Boy, how much time you got?
What's your idea of success?
Well, similar to you, I want to work for myself and kind of take ownership of my own success. And then I guess the sub layers of that would mean what success means to me, but a big one is financial independence and
Mhm.
how that translates to kind of a more independent lifestyle in general.
Mhm.
And by the way, Quinn shares an interest in real estate, Tom, in the outdoors.
Good. Good. You know, just to comment on something there that made me think about it. You know, a lot of the friends I've had, and many of them that were MBA classmates of mine at Chapel Hill, every bit as smart as me, maybe much smarter, IQ wise, let's say. But they went to work for big companies, and then they were never able to get out. And they had good careers, but they kind of plateaued. And then they just started kind of playing a lot of golf, and you know, and maybe that's happiness for a lot of people, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. You know, I mean, I was more ambitious than that, and for whatever reason. But so you know, there's not a right answer to that question, but I think there is a right answer for each one of us. And you know, and you know, when I get to, we'll get to drive in a minute, but that's kind of the ambition question.
You know,
And,
Tom, you mentioned in your narrative, just telling your story, when you reached the point of financial independence and you started your own company, you kind of checked those boxes, and your goals actually went to the next level. Now those two goals are table stakes. You know, is that right?
Would you say they're what, table
Well,
stakes?
those two goals have now been satisfied, and now you're moving on to another level. It
Right.
seems to me that that's a kind of the nature of impact in a person's life.
Yeah, I think, you know, and really at Chapel Hill under Jerry Bell, 1971, he wrote the book Achievers, where he said there was, I think, 5 different personality types: commanders, avoiders, attackers, achievers, and manipulators. I think were the 5. But that's the first time I'd really heard the word achiever. And you know, a lot of Jerry Bell's work was around that concept of an achiever. And when I wrote this book, Ted, I initially, maybe when you and I first started talking about it, I wanted to call it The Achiever's Journey. That was kind of my thought about a title, because an achiever is someone, to me, that gets kind of an inordinate amount of pleasure out of achieving goals. And they don't have to be massive goals, but a real achiever to me just loves achieving goals, whatever they are. I mean, call them worthy, but some people just get ridiculous pleasure out of achieving. And those are the kind of people I call achievers. And, you know, Ted, I think you're an achiever. You know,
I totally am. In fact, I received a book once from a friend who said, you know, Ted, I'm going to give you a book that'll change your life. And it was by James Ogilvy, and it's called Living Without a Goal. And I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not even going to read this book. It's just not me. It's not who I operate.
Yeah, yeah. Well, not everybody's an achiever, though. But I think, you know, people that are achievers, I think, resonate with that idea. And I think that's kind of the secret sauce, is call that ambition, if you will. But you know, ambition is kind of become a dirty word in our society today. And I actually mentioned that in the book. But if you go to your dictionary app and look up the word ambition, it uses it in a sentence, and it says so and so's ambition caused him to be disliked by his classmates, or something like that. I mean, so there was some pushback on, if you raise your hand and say I'm ambitious, people would look at you and go, well, that's selfish, you know, or something. But anyway, being an achiever, I think, is a rare quality, and it's a good one.
Today's society has really shown us what a blind ambition can do, and you know, ambition for ambition's sake. And you know, I'm sure you agree that that's still well faded, but you know, ambition is what drives the future. You know, being ambitious about something that's better is what drives, I think, entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and you know, on that topic, and we'll get to it under the chapter of drive, but Abraham Lincoln had a quote that is, your own resolution to succeed is the most important one thing. So, and that's really the truth. I mean, your own personal resolution to succeed is really what I'm calling drive. And that's just you've made an agreement with yourself that you're going to succeed. And you know, I made that agreement with myself when I was in high school, and I made that resolution, and that was the fuel that kept me going. Hey, let's go to risk taking first, briefly. But you know, risk taking is another thing that you don't ever see in books about success, and I think the reason is that maybe successful or people don't write books. But you know, risk, you can, you know, no risk, no reward. And you know, most people say, oh, it's too risky. You know, why would you stick your neck out like that? But not sticking your neck out is also risky. You know, not so when you know, you cannot go through life without taking chances. I like the quote that I have in the book by Helen Keller. It says, security is a myth. It does not exist in nature. And you know, the more you try to play it safe, the more risk you subject yourself to that you don't even know about. You know, so anyway, we have to take risk. You know, I think today, you know, the key to risk is mitigation, and you know, you hear that word a lot today about the virus. And you know, for example, you know, and I think this is a good example of risk taking. But although this was forced upon us, but mitigating the risk of getting this virus is social distancing, washing your hands, you know, not doing anything stupid. You know, I mean, that's how you mitigate getting this virus. Well, there's a lot of other viruses out there that are less, you know, or you know, kind of not real viruses, but bad things that can happen to you. That, but for example, if you start a business, that's a risk. But every risk that I've encountered, and I've taken a lot of them, you first figure out what you're going to do if things don't work out. That's before you know, commit to doing something that's risky. You have a plan B, and that plan B says, okay, this is how I limit my losses. And we did that with Trammell Crow and with lender liability and things like that. But before you go into it, and once you can live with the worst case scenario, then it's a lot more comfortable being uncomfortable. And so, but the more you do that, the more comfortable you get. And it took me a long time to get there. I mean,
students, I would reinforce that, because one of the key components of the deliverable that you all have in the journey map is contingencies, thinking through the what if. But it implies or assumes that you're going to take risk with your work, you know, calculated risk.
Yeah, and I call them taking smart risk. You know, I mean, certainly there's stupid risk, but taking smart risk is a requirement of success. Period. And you know, there's another quote I like that said, "A ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are made for." You know, I mean, so you know, human beings were not meant to be safe. I mean, human beings were meant to take, you know, to accept risk and try to achieve great things, and you can't do it without taking risk.
I heard once that ships were made to be burned at the shore. I'm just kidding. Brian, you've got a good question on risk. Do you want to raise it?
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself there. Yeah, Tom, thanks again. On taking risks to launch a company, we've heard some advice against it early on in our careers, and others say jump right in and work that entrepreneurial muscle. I'm not sure if you think that's a thing, but do you believe the decision to be a question of alignment of our inclinations around risk taking, or are there skills and talents that you think we should assess instead before making that dive? And maybe if you could think back to the time when you were 41 and you first went and took that leap, you might have some guidance to reflect upon about what was so different from that period to earlier on in career that you didn't do it. How can we assess our readiness, and what tools we can take to mitigate?
Yeah, you know, what I would say for that is that the problem with jumping out on your own early like that is who are you going to learn from? I mean, if you start off being the owner or the CEO of a little company, you're denying yourself the exposure to really great executives. And so now I don't know where you find those. I got lucky, I guess, and found companies that gave me role models to follow and learn from, and some better than others. But and so in my case, it took 18 years and 6 bosses in 8 states to figure out to learn. And so when I was 40, I knew so much more because of the experiences I'd had. Now, a good friend of mine, David Weekley, the home builder that bought my company, he started his home building company when he was 22, right out of college. He applied to Harvard, got denied. They told him to go out and get some work experience, and he started his own company, and it's now the largest private home builder in the country. So you can do that. I mean, and he taught himself and found his own mentors. So, but you've got to have a plan to who am I going to learn from? Because in a little small company, you're not in a structure. But so the other thing is if failing as an entrepreneur is really so valuable, and so trying something hard, failing, in my case, I had a home building business in Denver. It was a disaster. I lost $1.5 million when I was with Trammell Crow in my late 30s, and I started my own company a year later, and I had those lessons emblazoned on my head, that now, and I'd seen what could go wrong, and so it was a relatively small error. So there's nothing wrong with if you have a good idea and you think you can get started with it, and you feel like that's what you want to do. You just have to have a backup plan that if it doesn't work out, and so I wouldn't discourage it. I would just say go into it with your eyes open, knowing what you don't know.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to drive then. Well, here, I talk about your own resolution to succeed, and also kind of finding your why. And that's a harder question when you're just getting started. But in my case, I didn't really know what my why was until many years later. But in talking about the keys to success, though, and the energy it takes to achieve it, my friend Bill Bonstetter told us about this idea of self-direction, that having confidence that you're on the right path is a very important thing. And I've always had that. I mean, so for example, Brian, if you're starting your own company, let's say right out of school, and you have confidence that's the right decision for you, that's really the most important thing, is feeling good about what you're doing now. Now in my case, I'm working for a big company, kind of climbing the ladder, and for me at the time, I was confident that was the right thing for me to be doing then. But the key here, though, which we're getting there on the career execution part, is you have to keep changing the scenery. And ideally, from the time you're 22 till the time you're 38, you really need to be changing jobs every couple of years, ideally. Because if you're not learning and growing, you're wasting your time when you're in your 20s and 30s. You've got to stay on a steep learning curve. And all the different things it's going to take to be successful in your industry. And you just don't do that staying in one place for longer than that. The joke is that, all jobs go like this. Year 1, you love your job. Year 2, you like your job. Year 3, you're beginning to see some things you don't like about it. Year 4, you have a lot of things you don't like about it. in year 5, you are committed to finding a new job. And that's just how I think it always works. So, but it does take a lot of energy to keep your drive alive, and that's the hard part, and that's really the separator. It's a real separator. So, any thoughts on any of that, or any?
Question for you, Tom. Do you find that that ideology holds true no matter what level of employee you're dealing with, i.e., from the core people at the bottom who are actually doing the construction through all of your administrative staff and through your executive suite team? That kind of year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plan.
No, I don't think it applies necessarily. I think the higher you go up in that organization, the more that applies. But for the achiever, I guess is what I'm talking about. For the person that is really trying to achieve that progressive, worthy ideal, you have to keep moving. You can't just stay in one place, because the joke is that somebody says, I have 20 years of experience doing something, and they really have 1 year 20 times. So you don't want to just be repeating yourself. You want to be constantly tackling new assignments, new challenges, and and not everybody is up for that. But I think the MBA student, I'll say, or even the graduate business, the Carolina student, the ambitious Carolina students that are taking this class, you can't flatten out. You have to, especially in your 20s and 30s.
When you're looking for hiring executives, I mean, for me, if I see a resume come through and I see that the person has job hopped, and I'm looking for, like lower and mid-level management positions, and I see that they've job hopped every 2 years, right? Then I know, for me, the employer, I've been thinking, maybe I'm thinking about this wrong, but I think, okay, well, by the time I'm done training and investing in you, you're just going to be gone again. So maybe am I missing out on all the achieving managers as a result of that?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think you have to ask them, why did you leave? And so many times people just take jobs for all the wrong reasons. And I think as we get into this next subject on career execution, maybe we can just go there now. But between 22 and 40, I think a successful person is going to have 4 or 5 or 6 jobs, different jobs. Now, those could be with the same company, but probably not. And they're probably better not to, because changing companies, changing cultures, half of the things I learned were what I'll call negative lessons. You learn what not to do. You have a boss that doesn't treat his employees well, or that doesn't whatever. So you learn things by observation and by experience that are things I don't want to do. When I own my own company, I will not do that. Okay. But so there's all kinds of things and then you see other things that I will do that. So, but if you just stay with one company forever, or from the time you're 22 to you're 40, you're not setting yourself up to be an entrepreneur. You're not getting enough different looks.
Tom, it's interesting what we're discussing here, and Christina too. The point you brought, we're really discussing variety and that basic human need for variety. A couple like philosophical speakers often identify that as like every achiever kind of needs that, like change in general. You either provide it or the structure around you provides it for you. So I think to Christina's point, and I definitely experienced that a lot hiring in the last firm that I worked with. You either need to expect and anticipate hiring a new person every 2 to 3 years, or changing the environment in which people work so that they can continue to prosper in it and thrive, because something needs to change. Either way, you're going to be making that investment for change and variety in either case, it seems like.
But to me, Brian, I would say the value in the variety is not for entertainment, it's for learning.
Yeah, for growth.
It's for growth. It's for growth, right? And And that's the most important thing. If you're, one of our sons works for the company WeWork that you've all heard about, and he's one of their top executives. And about every 6 months, they've given him another job, usually a promotion. And so he's been with WeWork now for 8 years, and every 6 months he's at a different job. So, but as long as, and he's experienced a lot of personal growth. But that's the emphasis, is personal growth, I think, and because in your 20s and 30s you can take risk and you can move around and you can take on challenges. And once you get married and begin to have children, some of your flexibility is limited. And so, and then you kind of have to settle down a little bit, typically, or traditionally anyway. So that's why your 20s are so important. And, have you guys heard of the book, The Defining Decade? That's a great book. I got to know Meg Jay that wrote that. And, I mean, it's an absolute fact. You've got to maximize your 20s. That's when you launch your career. You begin to identify the role models you're going to try to emulate, and you can move around. You can live wherever. Take on, you can work as hard as you want. I mean, so anyway, the personal growth is the point. Really.
Tom, I'm really looking forward to the last element of the second phase, the career execution, because it's so critical to what the students are working on now.
Yeah, well, let's go to that. And the thing here is that that it is an art, and the hardest part is changing jobs. Going and in my book, I just call them job 1, job 2, job 3, job 4, because that's really all they were. Looking back, it's it's a sequence of different experiences, different places, different bosses, different leaders, different cultures, and it's just you're taking it all in. And so at the end of the day, in my case, after 18 years and 6 bosses and all the different experiences, I was able to pull from each of those different experiences the things I liked, and to build and to define my company around what were the best ideas I thought that I'd learned from all those experiences. And I tried to become the kind of executive that was pulling all the best traits that I had learned and avoiding the worst traits. So I had those experiences to draw from, and then create a company that was, I thought, that made up for, that was founded on some really solid principles. And but I couldn't have done it without moving and working for all those different people.
And part of that, the corollary of that lesson, Tom, is that you made those decisions. The people didn't make the decisions on your behalf. I love the quote at the bottom, by the way. Do you remember who said that?
Oh, that's Harvey McKay that said that.
Wow, that's amazing.
The time is free, but it's priceless.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was Harvey McKay. But the other thing I talk about in this career execution is there's different, I've been trying to get universities to teach career planning for a long time, and it's been hard to get a big public university to buy into that. But careers are something that you can teach, and there's different models for that. And we're now, hey, you like that? Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most important things in your life, really, in your career, is to understand how it works. And so there's different models for it, and I tried to put that in this chapter. And the first one was what I call the industry model, where for me, I knew I wanted to be in, call it the construction real estate industry. So really, this message there is just get on the target, just get in the industry, and then you'll begin to, if you're a total rookie, just get a job in that industry, and then keep moving, and eventually find the bullseye. That's, and in 4 or 5 jobs you can find your bullseye. Then you've got what we'll call the functional area model, where some people are finance and accounting oriented, others are operational oriented, others are sales and marketing, and today I think there's also a technology category, certainly. And so if you think about, which industry or which function, not industry, but which functional area resonates with me. I mean, is it finance and accounting? Is it operations? Is it sales and marketing? Get in the game. Just I mean that's a good way to get started, and then just go from there. The other part that I wanted to talk about a little bit is the entrepreneurship model, and I do address that in the book, and I'm going to flip to it here. But how many of you want to be entrepreneurs? I mean, all of you, I guess, most of you. And so an entrepreneur, if you look it up in the dictionary, is a person who initiates and takes risk. So fundamentally, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be someone who likes to do both of those things. Who likes to initiate, and who can be made comfortable to take a risk. And not everybody can say that. So Ted and I have talked a lot about this, but I do think there are personality traits that have been found to correlate pretty highly with successful entrepreneurs. And and what I've said is assertiveness. Is that, and that also could be called dominance. But the successful entrepreneurs have to be able to handle problems and obstacles, and can't be discouraged by roadblocks. So if you're the kind of person that when you run into a roadblock, you figure out how to go over it, under it, around it, or through it, then I think you're probably cut out to be an entrepreneur. But because you will encounter many obstacles. As a home builder, I can't remember doing anything that somebody, at least one person, told me you can't do this. And so you have to you can't be discouraged by that. You have to be motivated by that. And so that's a trait that I'll call it assertiveness, but it's also problems don't bother you. You enjoy problems. Fast paced. You've got a lot of balls in the air. You have to be comfortable in a fast paced environment, and then just persistent, resilient, like the grind, won't quit. In the motivating values, that's probably the strongest correlation in the research that's been done, and that's the utilitarian value, utilitarian and individualistic. And Sherry, you're there. I mean, you know that we all know that those two characteristics highly correlate with successful entrepreneurs.
Here's mine, Tom. Individual, utilitarian.
Yeah, absolutely. And then theoretical is another one. I mean, that's the third value: individualistic, or utilitarian, individualistic, and then theoretical. Those are the three. But not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. But there's different types of entrepreneurs. There's the I'm going to call it the Mark Zuckerberg model, which I think is really he's a phenomenal businessman. He's off the chart talented, but I think his model has hurt a lot of young people because one in a billion can do what he did. He came up with a great idea, had a partner, then got rid of the partner, and then launched it and went global, public, and now he's one of the top 5 companies in the world, I guess, or close to it. But that's not a model that most people should follow. That's very rare. Then you've got what we'll call the serial entrepreneur, which is somebody that just goes around starting businesses and selling them. And that's, for some people, that's the right way to go. They love to start new things and then get out, and that's okay too. In my case, I call what I did a long-term entrepreneur. And those are the ones that style just happened to resonate with me. But the idea of building a company and owning it for a long time and being profitable managing your wealth, taking good care of your employees, giving back to your community. To me, that was really the way to go, and then ultimately, I guess it would have been nice to have kept that company in the family, but I just didn't really want to do that with our children. I wanted them to do their own thing. I didn't want to impose that on them. So, but that's what I call the long-term entrepreneur. And then you can be a corporate entrepreneur too. I mean, you can work, and today, I think more and more of that's going to happen where you could work in a big company and have a lot of freedom to do things at that level. And so there's the corporate entrepreneur model as well. So there's not just one size. I mean, but you can build whatever company you want around your capacity, your strengths, and your style. But one last thing I'll say on that, and I'd love to talk about it, is one of the first things I think you want to do when you start a company is decide how big you want it to be, and kind of what you think your span of control is. And in my case, I didn't want my company to be too big. I'd learned that there's a perfect size for a home building company in one market. And for me, that was about 300 homes a year. And so we did not want to get bigger than that. And so I came up with a game plan that would get us there as quickly as possible and then stay there and just be profitable and keep getting better in terms of our operations. So in other words, though, I tried to create a company that was at a capacity that I could manage comfortably. And some people and because I was more detailed oriented, I didn't want to have home building businesses in 6 different cities. That would have driven me crazy. So fortunately I was in a very big market in Phoenix, and there was plenty of business right there. I didn't have to leave town. And but the idea of building a company around you, around your capacity, your strengths, your range, and
I'm curious, Tom. I think this would be good information for you. I'd like the students just to answer this question for me, just by raising your hand. How many of you have learned through this exploration in the course, or otherwise, whether you're going to be a founder of a company, or you would be better suited in an existing organization or being part of another organization, not as a founder? How many of you really see yourselves as founders eventually? Pretty high percentage, but a number of you are saying, oh, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'd probably be better suited in an organization, be an internal entrepreneur. How many of you have already started your business or will start your business right after school? Okay, it's a good number of hands. How many of you will break out in the next 5 years and maybe start your business in the next 5 years? How many of you have a more longer term view, maybe 10 years, 15 years? Yeah. So we're preparing you well, I think. We're trying to understand kind of the steps you need to take to put yourself in the position to be impact. And slow and steady can win the race. You're right, though, Tom. Mark Zuckerberg is a total anomaly. For every Mark Zuckerberg, I'll show you 10,000 successful entrepreneurs that did it a different way. The web is, though, an amazing open. It's like the Old West, the Wild West. So what we've learned is that orientation toward risk is also a factor. It's interesting that the Gen X's, the boomers start businesses about 13 years after baccalaureate attainment, around mid-40s. The Gen X's around 11 years, almost 12 years. The Gen Ys are 9 years after baccalaureate attainment, and then on average. And then the Gen Zs are actually taking a step back to 10 years. They're actually more conservative because they came up during a time of crisis. They lived through the 2009 crisis and saw, now we're facing another crisis today. So it really boils down to the orientation toward entrepreneurship. But startup rates are going slower, but it's still quite a few number of years typically that people will experience in their careers before they break out entrepreneurially.
You know, Ted, that makes me think of something that, to me, the one of the better things I did as I preparing to start and own my own company is have a really clear description of what the company was going to look like that I wanted to own and run. And it's kind of like what do I want my company to become? And you know, I mean, what was the product? What was the style? What was the organization look like? What was the industry? As much as you could describe it, the more color you can add to that description. You know, in other words, I want to start and run a company that, and then just start hitting the bullet points. That, you know, what would it be known for? What would you want people to say about it? What would, and then here's the, if you look at it in the book again, it talks about coming up with what are your core values? What are your company's values? How are you different than your competition? That's a really important question, because you know the old joke is that a CEO who can't describe how his company is different than the competition in 25 words or less is running a company that's in trouble. Okay. Let me say that again. I mean, if you can't describe your company in 25 words or less and how it's different, you're in trouble. So you have to be able to, you can't just go, I'm going to be like everybody else. You have to have an edge, something that's unique. You know, in my case, in the home building business, it took me a long time or a short time to learn that, but it's all about quantity. I mean, how many houses do you build? That's really all anybody wants to talk about. So I saw an opportunity for quality, and that was my difference. So I built my whole company around a quality product, and we got into the minutia about that. But that happened to resonate with my style, my detail orientation, and also my history and my commitment to customer service and a high quality product. But it was also, this is important, it also allowed me to get higher margins. And I knew that because I learned that in Chapel Hill, that if you have a unique product, you can get higher margin. And so it was, and all my competitors were big, large, quantity-based public companies. So there was a strategy there. But I'm just saying, the more detail you can put on that, how your company is going to be different, what's going to be unique about it, the higher your likelihood of success. And now you know what you're trying to accomplish. Then that's the vision, you know, because you know, I guess that gets me to my next point. I identified 5 phases of entrepreneurial success in the book on page 253. The first one is the vision. It must be clear and noble. Okay? Write it down, work it over, get it perfect. The next one is the struggle. You can't avoid it, and it's going to take at least 10 years of a struggle, just grinding it out. You're right on the edge. You know, 10 years is not hard. That's not that long at all. Then after that, if you've done a good job, you now begin the journey phase, and that's probably another 10 years. And along the way, your passion will increase for what you're doing, and at the end of it, you'll have a sense of purpose and meaning. To go back to one of the first questions, you'll find purpose and meaning in doing that.
It's really well said. You know, it's amazing, just the analogy of hitting the bullseye over time, and kind of this learning that goes through the process that's continuous. Anthony has a quick question for you, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Hey, thanks again, Tom. So one of the questions I guess that is bugging me or is on my mind a lot lately is sort of given the current circumstances, is kind of maneuvering and building your career and crisis management or damage management in crises. You know, I remember reading an article, I want to say in 2012, 2013, about the 2007 class of Ohio State that had graduated college kind of right at the crest of the housing bubble before everything crashed down. And for them it was really devastating, and a lot of people said that, you know, although they had, you know, some success, that, you know, it was really, it required a lot of ingenuity, and for the ones who did get jobs, it required a lot of ingenuity and a lot of kind of sort of really like kind of getting down and dirty to be able to survive and thrive in that environment. I know obviously this sort of you know, kind of crisis is not economic, thankfully, and so hopefully we won't see that same level of long-term effects. But in terms of handling a situation where you're in a recession, especially as an entrepreneur, how do you really like make the most out of that? How do you try and kind of survive that sort of tidal wave of economic downturn?
Yeah. Well, first of all, um, Trammell Crow used to say, "You don't make money when times are good. You make money when times change." So, so even what we're seeing right here is a huge opportunity, okay, for an entrepreneur. And there's going to be a lot of them come out with, you know, there's all, you know, think of all the business opportunities that have just been created as a result of this. Food delivery, you know, I mean, everybody's doing that. You know, just access to medical devices. I mean, just to name a few of the obvious ones. But when times change, that's when entrepreneurs have the most opportunity right there. Because if things are just growing and staying the same, you know, there's not a lot of openings. But when you shake it up like this thing has done, and so did 9/11, and you can really, I think, compare this to 9/11. I was reading something this
Yeah, very
morning
much.
that, you know, 9/11 happened, people were just in shock that, oh no, the world has changed, and from now on, there's going to be bombs going off all the time, and we're not safe anymore. And I think that's really what we're saying right now is that, you know, oh no, now we won't ever be able to get close to another human being and
Yeah.
without fear of some virus. And but that's going to go away. But there's a lot of opportunities, but you have to be careful, and you have to understand the risk and have a plan B. You know, but there's a lot of opportunities that people that have the courage to step into those voids. There's going to be a lot of billionaires made out of this crisis, really, or even millionaires.
Thanks so much. Wow, that's a really awesome answer.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Times of change.
I'm sorry?
I was just going to mention times of change are really an opportunity for entrepreneurship. You know, and it's not in any way predatorial. It's quite the opposite. They usually are leaning in to serve in the ways that goes right back to helping others in the foundation. I know you have one more slide, which is a concluding slide. I don't want to blow your clothes, but Charlie has a quick question for you.
Okay.
Charlie Helms. Charlie, I'm sorry, you're on mute there. I'm going to unmute you. There you go.
Sorry, I was saying I didn't put a question in the chat, but I was curious about, like, I guess, like, how one, like, so for me, like, I'm always kind of like, you know, hesitant on, like, you know, going on the fence of like founder or, you know, like working within like a big company. So like, how did you, like, you know, kind of, or what do you tell people when they want to like get over that fear of, like, you know, just settling within like upper level management or like starting your own company?
Okay, say that again for me. Just
Yeah, so like for me, like a big fear is like I feel like if I stay in upper level management, I'm gonna get like stuck. So like what are some ways you tell people to kind of like mentally remove those roadblocks for themselves so they can start their own company?
How do you get out of your own way?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, again, you know, I'm going to go back to the vision. You know, you don't just say, I want to be an entrepreneur and quit your job. I mean, you have to say, okay, what kind of company do I want to run? What's it look like? What's my plan? How am I going to get started? How am I going to get through the first year? What am I going to do if it doesn't work? you know. So you have to address all those issues, and you know, so and then you got to keep your job until you figure all that out, or you can, you know, I like to say, think of yourself driving down the freeway, and you know you want to exit. You know, you want to get off the freeway. What do? You get in the right-hand lane, okay, and then you kind of slow down a little bit, and you start looking for the right exit. And so, and then you know, you make sure that you're ready to take, when that exit presents itself, you take it because you have a plan of where you want to go. So to me, that's what happened. I knew I wanted to exit the big companies, but I kept, you know, trying to look for the right exit, you know, and I got lucky and it kind of presented itself. But but had I not been ready and looking for the exit, I probably would have missed it, you know. But so it all starts with a vision, you know, and kind of a good clear plan of what you want to do. Really, that's
honing that vision is really one of the biggest things you'll be doing. Trying to define what kind of thing you're going to realize, you know. Realization of a worthy ideal, as you'd mentioned.
Yeah. You know, I want to mention a few other things here about entrepreneurial success, some myths and realities. I just want to go over some of those, but and you know, these are arguable. I don't want to say that I'm not the final word on these things, but now, no, these are not the entrepreneurial ones. This is a different set of myths, Ted, but you can leave those up there. But these are the myths and realities about entrepreneurship that I would say. The first one is a myth is it's about a great idea. That was kind of the Mark Zuckerberg myth, you know, that, or model. You just come up with this great idea, and that's the key. Okay. The reality is that it's about solving a market problem, about filling a market void. That's where a crisis like today creates voids. So the reality is, you know, it's about a market problem. What's the problem? What I want to say there too, Ted, you were talking about helping others. The cool thing about entrepreneurship is that the rewards are directly related to the benefit you provide to your customer.
That's right.
If you don't believe that, you know, the best example is Bill Gates. Why is he worth $1 zillion? Because he came up with a product that improved so many people's lives. Okay, the software to do it. Same thing with Zuckerberg, although you could argue the value of his product, the addictive quality of his product. But so that's one myth. Another myth that you might not agree with is that it's all about the team. And you know, I'm a team player. I know what a team is, but to me, entrepreneurship is not about the team; it's about the leader. And it's really, I mean, it's not a team sport. Although some people want to make it that, and you know, but to me, it's about one person, because you have to have a good, crisp, clear, clean vision, and it's hard enough to get that right, but if you have to debate that with another person or two other people, it kind of gets watered down. So to me, and then when it comes to making tough decisions, again, it's about the leader. The other one is it's about passion, and I think Christina, we've covered that one. That it's not about passion; it's about adding value for customers. Okay, what are you doing for the customer? That's the more you can help the customer, the more you benefit, and that's the magic. The other one is it's about the strategy. You know, it's not about the strategy; it's about the execution. Now, you have to have a strategy, you have to have a vision, but that's not going to get you successful. That's not going to get you profitable. It's about execution. And then the other one is it's about growth. And to me, depends on the industry you're in, but I think it's about constant improvement. If growth is improvement, if you need growth to improve, then that's good. But improving your product, improving your service, improving your margins, that's what it's about, in my opinion. So.
Well, Tom, you opened this up by saying you were giving us a gift, and you certainly have done that. I know there were a number of questions that have already been raised in the Q&A, but are there other questions you'd want to raise right now before we move on to the second segment?
You're saying for me or for anybody?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, for the students.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions? I detect we're at the point where we need just a little bit of a stretch break. So what I'd like to propose is that we take a 5-minute stretch break, and the team, Christina, Stephanie, Eli, Alex, and Ryan are going to do an exercise applying Tom's work to your efforts. So let's, it's right now 10 of 6. Let's come back at 5:55 and just get a break. But do please get out of your seats, get your blood flowing.
Yeah.
We'll
Ted,
start
can you
in 5
change
minutes.
the screen where we can see everybody?
Yes.
Just, that'd be fun.
Let's do that.
Okay. There you go. That's cool.
Good deal. So we'll get started in 5 minutes, and I think that Gabriella is going to assist the team, Christina, Stephanie, Eli, Alex, and Ryan, in getting things ready. I'll give you a bit of a warning when we get restarted. Tom, if you want to go get a stretch too.
Yeah, we'll do. Okay.
We'll get started in 5.
Are you gonna make me the host, Ted?
I think you are already. Are you, Gabriella?
No, I had turned you into the host after like the
You're
first
back.
10 minutes of class. Okay, cool.
You back.
Perfect. Thank
I'm gonna
you.
run grab some tea. I'll be right back.
Yes, ma'am.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
I have to last minute edit these teams. I think some people got kicked out and kicked in again.
Oh, by the way, y'all, he was definitely my favorite speaker that we've had in this class.
Oh, really? That's
Nice.
Yeah, no joke. I mean, I know he's not sitting there right now, but I'm still telling you this. Like, he was so good.
No,
He's so wise.
There's a lot of good nuggets. A lot of good nuggets.
nuggets.
I'm gonna go grab tea so I can be back in time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Woo.
Just a little preview.
Yeah. Alex, where are you from?
I'm right here. I'm from Raleigh, actually.
Okay. Anthony, where are you from?
I grew up right outside of Manhattan, but I live in Cary now.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
We have our son with WeWork is in Manhattan.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So he works in the office up there. That's cool. Yeah. No, it's really co-working spaces are so popular up there.
Well, they used to be.
Used to be right before. Yeah, before all this happened.
It's kind of it's kind of become the pretty tough spot right now.
It has. I think get back like I think the comparison between this and 9/11 is actually really interesting because they both I think they both kind of like ignited this fear that really people there's been other things like the swine flu and stuff like that, but nothing on this level that I think it's going to be really interesting to see in the next couple of years how sort of things transition and people kind of readjust.
Yeah, I mean, the thought of going to a North Carolina Duke basketball game. I mean, when are people going to be comfortable getting in a room with 20,000 people again? I mean, I hope soon.
Yeah, even one sitting next to you within 5 feet, right?
Yeah, no, it's really.
Christina, where are you from?
I think she just stepped away for a few minutes.
Yeah. Anthony, are you a undergraduate student? Or?
Yes, sir. I'm a junior. Yeah.
Brian, how about you? What are you?
I'm an MBA.
Okay. What year?
First year. Christina also. She just came back too. If you wanted to ask her that
Hi,
question,
Christina.
he was just asking where you're from.
As I was coming into the room, what I missed.
Yeah. Where are you from?
Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh, really? Another. Well, you know how far it is from culture to agriculture?
Oh no.
34 miles.
That's good.
Right?
I like that one. That's good.
Ooh, that was a really good one.
That used to be the funny joke.
That was wonderful.
Culture to agriculture, 34 miles.
Yep.
Hey, Christina, tell Tom what you do and a little bit about your background. Christina's running a company now, Tom.
Oh, well, we're working. Certainly, I don't know if I'm so much running it as the team that we have, but right now we're trying to work to provide the medical device that the test kits for COVID-19 go into. Mm-hmm. So we're very busy. Things are running right now, and we're doing everything that we can to see how else we can adapt the medical device to maybe disinfect the masks, or we can't do that, what other areas can we go into? So it's a busy time right now, Tom. It's very busy.
No kidding.
Yeah, but we're getting through. We're certainly getting through. But I loved your book. Was so grateful that you allowed us to read. I know the version we got was still a manuscript version because I understand it's not out yet.
No, it's out. It's actually it's on Amazon. I'd love it if you guys would buy a copy. But it is on Amazon. Or you can go to a website that we created called solidgroundbook.com.
Okay.
And that's actually our own kind of direct book website, and all the proceeds are going to go to charity, to our foundation.
When did it come out? Because I looked on Amazon about a month ago for it.
No, it came out March 30th. Last day of March. So it's out there right now, but it would be great if everybody would go buy a copy.
Yeah,
I would love to have a physical copy of it. It's so funny. All the books that you mentioned, the Defining Decade and the Have Fun Friends and Influence People book by Dale Carnegie, I love both of those books.
Oh yeah.
What is your foundation set up for?
I'm sorry?
What is the foundation for?
Well, we created our own family foundation 20 years ago. Again, you can go to our website, it's twlewis.com, under the philanthropy section, but we support a wide range of charities, from foster children and homeless and low income families, to educating young people, to healthcare, and finally to a category I call Strengthening America, which is really about faith, family, and freedom, which has become my new passion.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Okay. It was nice to read about your faith too. We don't really see a whole lot of that these days, and so that was it was nice. It was refreshing.
Yeah, powerful.
Now, what do your children do? You mentioned they didn't come into the family business.
Yeah, we have 3 sons. Our oldest one is in the apartment development business. Works for a company called Alliance, and they build apartments all over the country. They're one of the largest apartment developers in the country. He's a partner here in Phoenix. Then our middle son is John. He works for WeWork in New York in Manhattan. And then our youngest son is in Newport Beach, California, who's in the office leasing business. And so he's kind of in panic mode right now, like everybody is in
Oh yeah.
every segment. But they're all doing well. One's married with 3 children, so we have 3 grandchildren.
Great.
Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and get started, everybody. Tom, what we do is the team that's responsible for your work does an exercise they design, and we've asked, given the challenges of COVID-19, for us to adapt the exercise so we could do it online. It's a way to apply and get some reps on the ideas. So I'm going to turn it over to the team to offer the exercise.
Okay, awesome. We'll go ahead and hop right in here. I'll drive, but we've all put a Google Docs link in the Zoom chat. You'll need that a little bit later on in about five minutes. So if you want to copy and paste that into your browser, you're more than welcome to do that. Kind of set that up here. All right, so it's working. I need to move my video so I can see. There we go. All right, can everyone see us? All right, give me some nods. So awesome. So we're talking about solid ground. Christina's gonna lead us off, but like Tom just went through the whole background here, presentations on solid ground, kind of building that foundation for entrepreneurial careers in our lives going forward.
All right, thank you, Alex. So guys, I'd just like to quickly introduce our team. We have Stephanie Chack, Alex Hopp, Eli DeGregorio, and Ryan Wallace with us today. We had the pleasure of reading Tom's book. Tom, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule, coming, presenting to us, talking with the class, and taking time to go through a lot of the key parts of your book. What we did is we took certain things, we kind of nitpicked little nuggets here and there that we all liked that resonated with us. And we want to share those with the class. And then class, what we're going to do afterwards is go through an exercise on that Google Doc link driven by Alex on, exactly key takeaways from Tom's book, but also the class as a whole. So I'm just going to start off by talking about SMART goals, making SMART goals. Tom talked about this today pretty briefly, but, when defining a goal, you want to define a goal that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And I think taking time to think about each of these aspects of a goal is really important. And I want you guys, after this class, we've given you a takeaway in the Google Doc. Think about making those goals in that framework, in the SMART framework, and Ryan's about to go over the HARD framework, but think about them as daily, monthly, annual, and then these someday goals that Tom outlines, things that don't have a specific timeline, but are still important and something that you do want to achieve. And I think that by defining goals, right, you guys can get to the next step, and we can all get through the next step of our lives, our career, and everything together. So I'm going to pass it over now and to Ryan. He's going to go over the HARD goals for you.
Yeah, Christina, thank you so much for covering that. And Tom, thanks again for being here. I'm going to go over the goals for the acronym HARD briefly, which are heartfelt, animated, required, and difficult. And really the big takeaways here are really to make goals that, obviously, sort of the SMART framework thinks about the timing of them, kind of how to design them and build them. But with HARD, you really want to think about the sort of deeper meaning behind some of the goals. So think about how they're going to be something that you really push for. That's a really key piece of heartfelt. Think about how you're going to visualize them. A big thing that's emphasized in Tom's book with animated goals is that you can't even sleep because you care so much about seeing this goal come to life. And it's something that you really want to have a strong faith in. Make it so it's required too. That's a really important piece that is emphasized because it shouldn't be something that you procrastinate on. You should want to get on those goals and move forward so that they're really efficient and also executed in a timely manner. And then difficult, this is finding a good balance with your goals. So don't make them something that's absolutely unattainable, but make it so it's something that you have to work for and not something that is just going to be super easy. And I can't echo this enough that afterwards, I'd really encourage you guys to check out the sort of summary that we came up with to sort of think about some of these goals and really using these two frameworks. And as Tom mentioned, his INSPIRE acronym as well, really come up with some of those good goals to build out some of your journey map and different pursuits. So I think it would be really helpful moving forward. So I'm going to continue passing the presentation down.
Yeah, so, oh, excuse me. Unfortunately, Tom stole a little bit of my thunder by kind of going over some of these myths and realities earlier in his presentation. But just to go through a couple of the ones that we found particularly interesting or important. Choosing between success and happiness, we think is often, people think you have to make a choice between those, but you can have both or neither because they're unrelated. Also, as Tom discussed, 30 being the new 20. 30 is still 30, and kind of how Ted had some input too. 30 is still 30, and your 20s are still your defining decade. But successful people do not waste time. And finally, that balance is the key to life. Rather than looking at balance, in the book, he described that finding your talent and your purpose is the key. And it's not something you can just snap your fingers and figure out, just like balance, and put it in a word and find out right away. It takes time to find your talent and your purpose, but once you do, that's the reality that exists.
Eli, I have a confession to make to the class, and that is, and Tom and I have spoken about this. It's really fascinating. I really do think you need to have the time in your 20s to help define yourself and explore different options that fit between what your gifts are and what your experiences will be. I've seen a clear breakpoint between how the undergraduates are doing the deliverable and the graduate students are doing the deliverable. It's just that they've had more experiences at this point. And, I got to admit, I'm just trying to reinforce the need to be intentional about your career and think about the themes that govern it and the basic principles that you're going to use to drive your decision making, so that there is some kind of deliberate pattern. But I don't expect you to, I got to confess, I don't expect you to define where you're going to be in 20 years when you're 22. I don't think anyone can. I just want you to be intentional about thinking about how you're going to move your career toward where your values will take you.
Ted, if I could say one comment there, it made me think of, one of the keys to success that we haven't mentioned yet is being open to experience. And certainly we can't, we don't even want to say where we're going to be in 20 years because that closes down all the other options, and so, as you go through life, experiences present themselves and you have to capitalize them, but you have to be open to new things and, open to going to different places and interacting with different people and bringing variety and choices into your life. And people that are open to experience tend to be both happier and more successful, I think.
I'd push it one step further, Tom, and that is not only being open, but being prepared to seize the opportunity when it presents itself. And a lot of people put themselves in the position where they see the opportunity, but they hadn't done the preparation to make the step. So, kind of putting yourself in a position to think, well, if I did it this way, it would take me in a wholly different and maybe more high impact opportunity. So I don't know, it's enough. So getting back, I interrupted Eli.
Yeah, no worries. I was just finishing up the myths and realities. That was a perfect time.
Thank you, Becca, for the reference, by the way.
So kind of like how we went through with Tom's presentation, right? He lays out the foundations for an entrepreneurial life. He breaks them up in his book in kind of those three parts, right? The foundations of success with goal setting and helping others, and your personal character, reaching your potential, including topics such as your drive, decision-making, career management, talent, and then your life's physical achievements with wisdom, meaning, success, and purpose and happiness at the top. Well, what we want to do in this presentation is we want to recognize that everyone here in this class has a lot of experiences and techniques and foundations that they can build off of, and that we can share our own knowledge with each other in order to build a better and stronger foundation for ourselves going forward. So in each of these kind of categories, we kind of have some questions going forward, and that's going to be our prompts when we work together in some groups. And Stephanie's going to go over our big instructions here for us.
Yeah, so everyone's been assigned to 6 groups. Make sure you click on that link, and then you're going to join your respective group. The entire group will answer 3 questions with 5 minutes per slide. So whichever group you've been assigned, just rotate to the next one. That will be done. Just go through the slides. And then on the last question that you're answering, just summarize the 3 points and pick someone to share with the entire class. And then we will go over all the findings.
Perfect. Yeah. So thank you, Stephanie. So we're doing what's known as a digital gallery walk. So the idea here is just that kind of think of these Google slides. So in the link that we shared in the chat as kind of walking around in a museum, and except you're able to draw on the art. And we want to get your thoughts, your responses to each of these questions. So each of your groups will be able to, and yep, I'll share the link again right in here. There it is. So each group will be able to answer 1 question at a time, and we'll rotate you through on these 5 minutes. We'll let you know when the last question is time, and then your group will be asked to share your key 3 points off that question with the entire class. Okay. So we got the breakout rooms of about 10 people. Sorry? Someone ask a question? Okay. Well, I think we're good. In that case, Gabrielle, we're ready to pop into our breakout groups. Everyone will be working in the same document, so we'll all be able to see each other, but we'll just be talking in our own individual groups.
Real quick, Alex, because I'm a dinosaur, should I be in the Padlet to see what's going on?
That's just in case the Google Docs doesn't work.
Okay, gotcha.
That's our backup plan. So that's our plan B.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. So Ted, you're actually group 6. You'll be or group 5, I believe. Sorry.
Okay. And is Tom going to go into a group too?
Tom, you're more than welcome to join a group as well to help kind of guide a conversation on a question here.
You can put me in a group if you'd like.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll slot you in a random group here.
Okay.
Take care of that. But Gabrielle, we're all set for those breakout groups.
All right, here you go.
So everyone wants to join in there, and then just answer the question associated with your breakout group.
Okay. I'm gonna assign you. Oh, where did Eli go?
Yeah, I don't know why I got like booted completely.
That's okay. I can just reassign you.
Thanks.
You were in group 3. No problem.
Yeah. You're gonna be like, where's the person leading?
Gabrielle, are you a student?
Thank you.
No, I am Ted's. I'm the program coordinator for the Entrepreneurship Center, and I also work directly under Ted. So
Yeah, I
I'm kind of
recognize
his
your
executive
name.
assistant. Yeah,
Cool.
that's me. I'm sorry, I somewhat look a mess today. It was not the best hair day this morning, unfortunately. The weather doesn't it doesn't really know what it wants to do. If it wants to be hot, cold, humid, dry, it's different every day. How have you been, Tom?
Good, really good.
Good.
All things considered.
So I also assigned you to one of the breakout groups, Tom. I think at the bottom right-hand corner, you should, on your Zoom screen, you know how there's that little panel at the bottom of the screen below all of our faces?
Yeah.
You should have an option that says breakout.
Yeah. So
If you click on that, and I think there's like an accept button or something, it'll put you into the breakout room. Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. Do you know what you want? April 23rd. From oh, where was Harris? Hello.
Hey, this is Danielle calling about your federal student loan you requested help with. You've been approved.
Hey, Gabriella. Could I
Hey,
go
hey.
back to the breakout room 6? I had to restart because my
Room
mic
6.
wasn't working.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
Hey, Gabriella, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
That's good. Are y'all like done with your assignment already?
We're overachievers.
Wow, that's incredible. I was not keeping track of time.
I was generally looking at time, but you know.
I'm overtime. I don't know about y'all.
My dad said like, isn't it like Monday today? And or like I saw this thing where it's like someone said like the like waking up in the middle of the night and thinking it's 10 a.m. is like the biggest mood of 2020.
I know. It's facts though. It's facts.
Yeah, my sleep
I'm
schedule
tired too.
has been murdered several times over. Rest in peace.
Yeah, I understand. It's been hard to keep track of a consistent sleep schedule for me too.
Hey, Gabriella.
You kind of work at like, you kind of work at like odd hours of the day. So
Yeah, I know. It's like I wake up at like 10 a.m. and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get work done for like an hour and a half, and then I have lunch at 11:30, and I don't work again until 2, and then it's
I know, and it's like, oh, but it's such a pretty day. Let me go walk the dogs.
Exactly,
And,
yes.
and then I'll like do work at 9 p.m. and then get emails, and I'm like, oh, but it's 9 p.m.
Hey, Alex, should we call back everyone, or is it?
Yeah, I was about to say, Gabriella, could you call everyone back?
Yeah, I can give them do you want me to give them like a 30-second notice?
That'd be perfect.
Yeah.
Close those breakout rooms.
30 seconds left.
Too bad there's no Jeopardy music to go with that.
That actually
Let's
played the
play 'em
Jeopardy
out,
theme
yeah.
song last time we had breakouts in another class. It's annoying. It was. It's exactly what I did not need. Okay. Has it been 30 seconds?
Yeah, I think you can call it.
Oh, well, now it's okay. Now it says a minute.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Everyone's popping back in. We got 17 right now. I think everyone's gonna be forced back in just a second. There we go.
There we go.
Cool.
All right, everyone looks like they're back. That's fantastic.
Alex at work, man. Good job. I'm impressed.
Of course.
I just finished Alex 3 times because I had horrible experiences with groups in Zoom. And I don't know why, because Gabrielle always takes good care of me, but that worked well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's kind of share what we thought. We'll kind of share our classmates' experiences, knowledge, and ideas so that we can kind of pick and choose the things that we want to kind of build our own entrepreneurial foundations on. So my group ended up on question 1. We started on question 6. We're now on question 1. And Aaron's going to share with us our 3 takeaways. So Aaron, feel free to take it away. What we thought about our slide here.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So we kind of all had our own strategies and tactics for approaching goals, but they seemed to have a lot of points where they kept meeting back up. And those were being able to visualize your goals. And when you're setting them, trying to imagine what that success looks and feels like, and being able to sort of articulate what that feels like to you and having that as the reason for your goals as you're, pushing through them. Having someone to keep you accountable. So having an accountability partner within a peer or a colleague or a counselor or a mentor, somebody that will keep you accountable and that you feel almost obligated to sort of stay accountable to. And then our last one was to revisit those goals often, and not just revisit them to remind yourself what the goals are, but also to be able to adapt with them and have your goals adapt to you. So as your circumstances change or as you grow and gain more knowledge, you may find that your goals have slightly shifted, and being able to shift those in a necessary way to sort of keep them ahead of you, but keep them ahead in the way that you want to be going.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Aaron. So let's go on to question 2, which I believe is group 1, breakout group 1. Does anyone in breakout group 1 want to share your takeaways from your answers?
Oh, Alex, I'm sorry. I thought we would end on question number 3, but.
Oh, you're on question number 3? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But Brian, if you're okay to summarize question 2, we can do question 2 as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
How would you define your passions versus talents? We said passion alone is at risk of being a myth, and it's important to find your skill, as we identified earlier in the classroom, and make sure that you're investing in your strengths. And a nice catchphrase that we enjoy is invest in your strengths and divest your weaknesses. And oftentimes your passion can build in time. So if you don't feel like your heart is all in it right away, but you're good enough at it, maybe have some faith in yourself, and that can grow. And oftentimes it might be a mentality thing that needs to shift in order for you to really embrace what may be your calling. And Tom Luce was also had some input there, which was really awesome. Take time for things that make your heart sing. And these are the inner passions that you have. They may be your hobbies. Nurture that part of yourself. If it's time outdoors, sports, hobbies, don't let that diverge your direction and become a distraction. Make time for it. It's important to nurture yourself, and oil the machine is a catchphrase that a good friend of mine likes to say. But focus on your skills and strengths and values.
Perfect. Awesome. So do we have a different group that ended on question 3 too, or were you guys the only one that did question 3?
Looks like there's group 2's answer in there too. Oh.
Looks like group 2 is here.
Yeah, we started there. But basically what we kind of said was just like talents are something that kind of give you a head start, or the ability to kind of be effective at something, or a little more effective than everyone else at something naturally. But passion is something that you can use as a tool to motivate yourself to complete a task and like kind of have a faster rate of learning. Whereas it's like one's a head start versus one is like a speed boost.
What is the Pomodoro timer?
Oh, Pomodoro timer. So Pomodoro timer, it means tomato in Italian, and I don't know why they call it that, but basically it's a tool that you can use to do 25 minutes on of work and then 5 minutes off. And it's a tool that I use a lot to kind of help prevent myself from burning out. I think a lot of computer programmers use it. I don't know why, but I'm not a computer programmer, but I just found it and it works really well. So
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Who ended on group question 4? Looks like we have 3 groups here.
By the way, the Pomodoro timer thing, it has to do with agile learning. So just keeping kinetic movement in thought process.
I think it's an actual Pomodoro looking timer with
Yeah,
a 25-minute clock on. I think that's why they call it that too.
okay, there's an app. I just use an app on my phone called Tomato Timer, and it's just a classic sort of. I don't know. It's super easy to get. It's like 2 megabytes and free. So
awesome. Who ended on question 4 here? I think we might have done. Some groups did more questions than they needed to, and some did the certain amounts. Some maybe did other ones. So who ended on question 4? What group ended here?
So I'm in group 4, and we did this question. So something we talked about was mainly like one, sitting down and really analyzing the decision you're trying to make. And in order to do that, like it's best to like have a pros and cons list. So always weighing out like what the benefits are, how it's gonna like, kind of hinder you in life maybe in some ways. So that's always good to just go down and sit and think about. And then another thing was like, how does it fit into your schedule? So a lot of us are like very busy and we always try to take in a lot. And sometimes it can be kind of overpowering to us and it can like really drain us mentally and physically. So seeing how it fits in your schedule can be really important. And then another thing is to create hypothetical situations or outcomes based off of your decision. So like, if I am to do this, how will it impact me, or how will it, just play out? And then you can always like, try to pivot or be flexible with how you're handling it from different angles. And then the last one is kind of like, sometimes we realize we really do make decisions based off impulse. So this could be just, you really want something, you think it's right in that moment, so you just go and pursue it.
Awesome. Yeah. I also like kind of the processes here to like flip a coin, using external things to kind of take those impulses out of it as well too. So that's awesome. Question 5. Question 5's got a lot on here. Who ended on question 5?
We ended on 5, but we also did 6 just for fun. But we talked about being transparent, be supportive to your team, bring on people that have different skills that complement yours, delegate, work with your team, and then taking feedback and having everything in line with those values that your team has as well. And then push people to be better and have a diverse team too.
So I hear a lot around kind of what Tom was saying, kind of setting a vision for your company and your team and kind of setting that around to kind of drive everyone towards that common vision, which is awesome. Perfect. And our last but not least, question 6. Who ended with question 6? There's a lot here.
We took care of 6. And the first thing that we said was to really take advantage of the speakers that Ted brings in, because you may not ever be in a situation again where so many successful people are coming in and you can personally reach out to them and whatnot. And then so the second thing we were talking about was that it's just a wild ride. We have that funny little picture in there talking about how if you really just strap in and take it for what it is, it's a great class. And then the kind of third thing that we all really wrapped around was that there are so many ways to be an entrepreneur. So that was just something that kind of, if you had to take a sentence away from this entire class and this entire experience, that would be something to really hold on to for a long time.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. And I like the addition of the image in there for the wild ride. So awesome. So this is great. I hope everyone kind of got some good quick takeaways and tools maybe from these different questions. Really the big thing that we wanted to share with this is that all of us are going to build our own kind of foundations from this, right? So it's going to be defining ourselves and building off of what we already have, but it doesn't mean we can't take some ideas and thoughts from other leaders, from our peers and from our classmates, and bring them into our own foundation. So, and kind of moving on from this, kind of taking frameworks and building them around ourselves to kind of set ourselves up for success. And with that, we think that's kind of a good summary of what Solid Ground aims to do for everyone who reads it, and kind of setting you on this path and defining your own kind of process for achieving your success and your goals in the future.
Yeah, I'd like to make just one comment here.
Absolutely.
I think think it's about time to sign off, but I am so impressed with you guys and girls as a group. And, I think you are a very sharp group of people, Ted. You've assembled or attracted an incredibly high potential group of people. I'm impressed with your maturity and also your goodness. I can see that in your faces. And I think you're going to be great. And just as an outsider who is not really prone to offering praise that is undeserved, I'm very impressed with you people, and it's been a pleasure to interact with you in this way and to share my message. And I feel really good about your response to it, and really thank you for it. So, Ted, thank you for inviting me to do this. And again, I'm just very impressed with the group of people that are assembled here, and I think you guys are off to a great start. And,
Tom, right back at you. The work that you've put forth has really defined, I think, our program, and I think we've attracted leaders that are really going to put it to work. And I think the multiple that we'll see out of this program is amazing, because the journeys that will be inspired, I hope, out of this course will generate incredible outcomes. It's why we do what we do. We really are looking forward to your futures, everybody here. And we know that future is going to look bright because y'all are going to lean into it. You're going to create something, render it visible. I think the thing that I'm really going to remember from tonight is success is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. I truly believe that the people in this class are focused on pursuing a worthy ideal.
Yeah.
So, Tom, I can't tell you how much we really are grateful to you for making your time available and sharing your wisdom. This is a great framework. I want to ask everyone's feedback on, ultimately, I would like to use Tom's book as the framework for the entire course, and maybe start with his framework. So I'd love to get your feedback offline on that topic. I just think it's spot on. It hits it right in the middle. And, I'll have to think through how to integrate it best. But I think it fits, kind of the starting points of the entire framework. And Tom, I think the title is also spot on. The fact that we're all pursuing kind of building that foundation. And I think that's the work that's being done here while folks are at Carolina. And thanks for being very intentional about pointing out what needs to be built to build that foundation for your future.
I like the Carolina blue in the title there. You got.
That's right. It works.
Well, hey, I hope I can meet you folks maybe this fall. I can get to campus and we can eliminate the social distancing and get to know each other. So,
is there a way we can get in touch with you to keep in touch throughout the summer?
I'm happy to share my email address and cell phone number. Ted has it, so he can share that.
Thank you so much.
I'll put Tom's email, with your permission, Tom, in the chat before we conclude tonight. But Tom, thank you. Let's give a round of applause virtually here. Thank you so much for everything and for being such a great champion to us. Thank you.
Thanks again, and I really meant what I said about how impressed I am with each of you individually and as a group. So, adios, amigos, and hope to see you again.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Students, I just wanted
Thank
to
you,
mention
Tom.
a couple things real quick. I've gone over this, I know, every time, but I just want to reinforce. We're going into the final 2 weeks of the class. One thing that I did realize when we did the group meetings, and I hope you're taking advantage of the opportunity to do peer reviews, just to get more feedback. The more diversity you have on looking at your work and getting feedback from people who may have different perspectives, the more you're going to learn. So, while we've put together the peer review as a way to accomplish that, feel free to expose your work to people you trust, people you admire, people who will be your greatest critics, who know you, to give you good advice. So render your work open. It's a moment where you have to kind of be vulnerable, share people honestly. This is, you know, what I would like to accomplish. These are my reservations. These are my challenges. These are maybe things that I question myself. The work that I really want you to spend some time on is when you're looking, if your next step is not to found a company, but to go work for a company, really take advantage of Busking's work in doing research on ventures that you would work for. None of them are going to come to career services because they're not looking for anybody. What they are needing you, and you have to just make the case to them. So do that work. If you have any trouble with tools like Capital IQ, or we have access now to PitchBook. We also have access to Prequin. And then obviously all of the tools with Bloomberg that are available. Of course, Crunchbase and AngelList are great sources too. Just do some real solid work on number one. Number two, look for people on LinkedIn that have careers that approximate what you'd like to be. You might not know anyone who would be your role model, but find people that approximate that. We talked tonight about the plan B. You know, think through what your plan B might be. You know, for some of you are thinking of the side hustle because you haven't convinced yourself the side hustle is your main deal. Maybe your plan B is your side hustle. And then the journey map tool, this is going to be the hardest thing for all of you, is actually to find that journey. And I think you're going to have clarity through a certain chronological point, and then it'll get fuzzy. But that's the mystery of life right there. And then obviously modifying your LinkedIn profile so you can attract people who would be interested in helping you realize that vision. That's the whole purpose. I'm going to put out the prompt by the end of the week for the final exam. You can guess that it's going to be basically an overview of your whole personal pro forma on video, but I'm going to probably give it a little bit of a twist. So stay tuned. It will just be a video oral exam, just like the midterm. It'll be due on the 28th. I want to get feedback real quick. I put it on the 28th because initially it was at the beginning of the reading period so that you would maybe front load it, put it away so you can work on your other exams. This is something that's really about you. It's not about me. I really want you to do the work for yourself. Is the 28th compressing you time-wise?
I think I mean, just personally speaking, like it definitely is. I've looked at my calendar today. I'm like, that's less than 2 weeks away. So
today.
Yeah. So it's definitely, for me, I noticed like it's kind of coming up a lot faster than I thought about it. But I mean, I'm fine with either, and obviously I don't want to make my personal opinion be that for the entire class.
Well, just hearing one case is enough for me. Go ahead, Rich.
Sorry, so I don't know if I can jump in there really fast. If we
Sure.
could maybe, I know you want to put the twist on it, but if we could get the deliverable communicated sooner rather than later, so we could even maybe start to work on it this weekend, you know, rather than having to wait until the last minute, that would be
No, the only thing that's not out there, the full deliverable has been out for a while. The oral exam is just the thing that's the twist. It's a presentation twist. But the full deliverable, this deliverable is out there in detail.
So the deliverable is the same, it's just the presentation twist.
Yeah, that's right.
Is there a way to get that maybe a little bit sooner, or
Yeah,
perhaps
I'm going to put it out by the end of this week. So that's your final exam. And I kind of intentionally hold it because I want you to kind of be able to, I want to see how well you deal with the kind of pivot. But yeah, I'll get it to you. But the deliverable is a fair amount of work just to put together the deck, you know. I saw a couple other hands. Mary Lacey?
Yeah. Is the timing, because I know the midterm it was like 8 minutes, and that for me was like pretty hard to cut into. Does the timing really matter, or is it like, can you be 2 minutes?
Not to me.
Okay.
If you feel like you need more time, that's not a big deal. I'd rather you do a solid job with it and do it for yourself than to do it for me. If you're doing it for a grade, look, just let me know. I want you to do it for yourself. So I'm happy to modify the time. Would no more than 15 minutes kind of framework work for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. And then Rich, you had a question, didn't you?
Yeah, I was trying to unmute myself, but I actually had the same comment as Christina. So if we want to do it earlier, I think that'd be awesome. But then we can have the timeline later. And then if we just want to do it earlier, we can turn it in sooner.
Yeah, that's why I was going to try to release the final oral exam this week, is that you could you could dispense with it and then work on your quant work or whatever you're doing otherwise. But I also, if you find out that you're behind in the other classes and you don't have time to do this, I'd rather you turn it in later and do it solid than, just jam it in, because, I'll be able to tell. And I don't want you to shortchange yourself. So when's the last time you heard a professor say that? I'm not that into deadlines and so forth. I'm more into solid work. So it's all about you. Oh, the other thing that we mentioned. So if anyone, I'll tell you what, let's leave the date on the 28th. And if anyone needs an extension, we'll provide that. And you don't really have to justify it, but do give me a date definitive that you're going to get it in, because I don't want to get in trouble with the registrar. They just harp on you to get the exam date stuff done, particularly for undergraduates. The other thing that was a pivot since our last time being together was I got feedback when we were meeting in groups that people were feeling overwhelmed with Zoom stuff. And I had already put some Zoom stuff in motion. We all met one time for the midterm reviews. So I decided to make it an optional next meeting. If you feel like you could benefit from some one-on-one feedback from me or some questions. So we have a doodle poll, a new doodle poll out there. I'm sorry for the change, but I think this is going to be more responsive to your needs. You can reserve a 20-minute slot. If you're in a real pickle, you can reserve 2 of those for 40 minutes. And Gabriella has it. It is a first come, first serve. If we end up running out of slots, then I'll make more time available. But that's going to be on the April 23rd and 24th, ideally. That'd be before your submission deadline. So I'd like you to do as much work as you can and not just kind of take the session for the purposes of getting support on the preliminary research. I'd like it to be more on, this is what I found so far. Give me some help on finishing this. So again, it's more or less about you. I'm going to make my time available. I did say optional because some of you might say, I've already figured it out. I've got it. And I think I can finish the deliverable. So you don't feel like you need to meet with me if you don't want to. Any questions about that? Well, that's good. All right, so next week, it's really exciting. We're going to be having our last thought leader and practicing entrepreneur sessions. We're having Sophia Wu, so Aaron and Taya and Roy and Claudia and Grishma are on. Very exciting group. Kind of a cool ending to this class. Amy Cosper was the editor of Entrepreneur Magazine, I think since its inception. She is one of the coolest damn people I've ever met. And she has met every entrepreneur you could name. She is super pumped about meeting with you guys. I've given a compendium of 10 articles she wrote, and I think you'll find that they're all about entrepreneurial leadership. So if you were assigned the responsibility, obviously you have to know those articles. But I would invite everyone to read them because I think they're short reads and they're interesting. And then we have Sophie Wu, who started Mofu, which started as a dumpling truck and now is a full-service restaurant. So it's kind of a neat story, and very excited to have Sophie join us. So should be a strong ending. I look forward to hooking up with you guys one-on-one as you need help, and then we'll see you next Tuesday. So I'll hang back if there are any questions. Have a good evening.
Bye, Ted. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Ted.